Today, I want to take some time to show off many parts of Guild Wars 2 by combining a few different videos that I have made on my channel into one bigger compilation, while also throwing in some new interesting information exclusive to this video. Hopefully this is a nice video for you to sit back and listen to in the background or actively if you would prefer. And through that, hopefully you learn or see something cool. Let's get started. One of the biggest things I've talked about on my channel before is the Guild Wars 2 wiki. If you are a new player or a veteran alike, the wiki is an incredible resource that I highly recommend utilizing. On the most basic foundational level, there's just a lot of information as it is an incredibly comprehensive and well put together wiki. If you ever want to learn about anything in the game, you can simply just check the wiki page for it and learn a lot. When it comes to some more difficult pieces of the game, like in-game content or challenging scavenger hunts in the open world, the wiki is always a great resource to utilize. It is essentially the combined knowledge of the Guild Wars 2 player base in one location, so if you struggle with, say, finding an objective during a scavenger hunt, other people have already found it and can help you out. One incredible part about Guild Wars 2 is that you can open up the wiki in your preferred browser in-game. Simply typing /wiki in your in-game chat box will do so, but you can combine ideas together by typing things like /wiki and then the name of a skill to directly open the wiki page to that skill. And you can also type /wiki and then shift-click skills, items in your inventory, or anything else that you can shift-click to instantly put whatever into your in-game chat box without having to type it out. To go through a random example, say you are exploring through the Kessex Hills and you encounter a troll. A very interesting type of creature that is definitely common in games like this. But if you want to learn more about them, you can type /wiki troll into your chat box or search for it on the wiki, and we can reach this page, which will allow us to learn about them. Trolls are large, tusked, brutish humanoids in Tyria. They are primitive creatures with a very basic tribal society led by chieftains. Many trolls prefer living in cave systems across Tyria, though those found in the Shiver Peak Mountains can be found in the open, and those in the Maguma jungle can often be found within denser portions of the jungle. Trolls are known to have a natural healing property that they use while in combat to recover from severe wounds. They can also generate lightning shocks to fend off attackers and other creatures encroaching on their territories. Female trolls have a deep voice that makes them indistinguishable from male trolls to the unlearned listener. There appears to be no easily identifiable physical differences between male and female trolls, at least to the casual onlooker. Not much of troll culture is known, though it is known that they can communicate with other races in the very rare cases that they want to. At least one troll has been able to learn Tyrian, but most of the encountered trolls prefer communicating in their own language, which learned non-troll individuals will need to interpret to people not fluent in the troll language. In some cases, trolls may even use body language with people unfamiliar with their language in order to communicate with them, showing favorable responses to people who respond with their body language and whose actions please the trolls. Cave trolls found in the Lowland Shore have shown aspects of Grawl-like primitive worship of unusual objects and view such objects as valuable treasure, as is the case with a scale of glint, which is speculated to have existed in Bagu Cave before the troll tribe migrated here. Trolls often resolve disputes caused by hunger, feeling cold, or other issues with their fellow tribal members with sudden brawls. These violent disputes can go on for a while, unless another troll or an ally of the trolls breaks it up by beating up both belligerent troll individuals to calm them down for a time. Because of their lack of communication, very little is known about troll culture, though they are known to use skulls of their prey as decorations for their homes, and jungle trolls can be seen with tribal tattoos, where there is a lot more information on this page as well, going more into the mechanical side of trolls with references and also a link to the troll page on the original Guild Wars wiki, a wiki that is of course separate from this one as it's for a different game, but is also connected in many ways on different pages that are made on both the Guild Wars and the Guild Wars 2 wiki, like here with trolls. But here's a really cool piece of concept art that you can take a look at if you want. And for one final thing related to the trolls, here we are in Bagu Cave, and this is the scale of glint for anybody who didn't realize that this was the scale of glint, which I think is just a really cool idea. And the number 10 spot is Rain Timber Mill. This is a lumber mill that you can find in Diasa Plateau. Now, I want to take a quick moment to just highlight Diasa Plateau because this is basically the region of Ascalon that supplies a lot of the Iron Legion war machine, where there are a ton of farms in this map, but also a ton of lumber mills. And this place is only one of them, where it is a bit on the smaller end, but is still very cool looking. You have a task to help the mill that largely focuses on interacting with skelk that have been trained to harvest wood from the nearby trees, which I think is a super interesting concept. I like this giant saw blade with this chute in front of it, which may or may not be called a log flume. Typically they have water when in operation. I like all the piles of logs you can find around this area, and I really like this crane that is holding up a small pile of logs in the air. And the number 9 spot is Black Barrow's Mill. This location in Lornar's Pass is very interesting because I feel like it is the most forgettable spot on this list. This is a small area that has a point of interest in it. In the past, it used to be a more extravagant location, but now it is run down and being used by the Covington Pirates. Where there aren't any events here, but you do come here during the Mightier Than the Sword story mission to fight some Sons of Svanir as a member of the Dermot Priory. Most of the structures around here are dilapidated, but I do like all the piles of wood around here, where you can even see some pirates collecting wood and adding them to the stacks. I also like the bit of bark you can see on the ground in the center of the camp, as well as this big log that is being held up by these supports. You also have some sort of windmill structure with the saw blade that people used in order to cut the logs here, which I think looks super cool. In the number 8 spot is Stargrove and Foghaven. These are two supply camps in Road vs. Road that are basically identical but found in two different maps, where they are the northeastern supply camp in the Alpine Borderlands, Stargrove being for the blue team and Foghaven being for the green team. Where I talked a bit about Road vs. Road supply camps in a recent video, and most of them are resource camps like mines, fisheries, and of course, lumber mills. Where I really love the vibes of these camps because Road vs. Road is basically just a massive war zone, and the workers at these supply camps are harvesting supplies in order to fuel that war. Where this is a pretty simple and straightforward area with some Crichton looking buildings, but interestingly enough we also see a blend of some char structures similar to what we saw at Rain Timber Mill and Diasa Plateau. You got another saw with a smaller chute in front of it, as well as another crane holding some logs in the air. You then have a bunch of piles of logs waiting to be processed, and I would imagine the Daliacs are taking cut lumber out of the camp and out towards the towers and keeps. I guess I'll also give a mild shout out to the canyon coming into this area from the south because of the incredibly wild and mildly inappropriate name that some people in the community have given this canyon, which I don't think I can say for monetization purposes. In the number 7 spot is Spilden Clearcut, another supply camp in Road vs. Road, but this time in the Eternal Battlegrounds, where this can be found in the northwestern end of the map, just west of the red team's keep, where this is another simple mill that I think looks decent. You got a simple house and another one of those windmill structures that are used to cut wood. I like to think about how there is somebody that lives in this house and comes outside to work in the mill while being surrounded by hordes of players all fighting each other. But the aspect of this mill that I like a lot is the clear-cut part of the name, because as you can see all around this area, this seems to have been a pretty massive fortress, but has been cut away to fuel the armies of the Eternal Battlegrounds. As you wander around this area, you can just see a ton of stumps all around here, and it is now a pretty open area, which I think this is cool to see in some contexts, as it fits into the vibe of the lumber mill. And the number 6 spot is Olaya's Clearing. Returning to Lornar's Pass, but heading further north, we can find this Lion Guard camp with a bunch of guards and workers all around here. You got some tents and a couple of those windmill saw structures, where I really like all of the workers around here that go out, collect some wood, and bring them back to the mill. It kind of feels like a classic RTS vibe, which, to insert a random thought, I would love to see a Guild Wars themed RTS one day. But similar to the Spilden Clearcut, you can also see stumps surrounding the entirety of this camp as the workers clear away the forest. Where this is one of the closest lumber mills to Lion's Arch, and there are caravans that load up planks of wood, take them onto the Lion Road that ends at Marshwatch Haven just west of here, and bring them to the city of Lion's Arch, which, oddly enough, the deputy that tells you this thinks Lion's Arch is to the east. In the number 5 spot is Red Reeve Mill. Returning to Diasa Plateau, we can find this mill just west of Rain Timber Mill, actually like very close to it as it is just on the other side of the hill. Where the operation going on here is a tiny bit more extravagant compared to what the others are doing over there. This mill is kind of built into the cliffside a little bit, as there are parts of the cliff over the central part of the encampment where you can find the massive saw with the chute, which, interestingly enough, there seems to be a gap in the chute from one part to the other, which may have been caused by the separatists around here. Wish this mill will occasionally come under assault by the separatists, and you can defend it by taking the battle to them or using some strategically placed sniper rifles in the mill to shoot them from afar. Beyond all of that, you got some super classic char buildings, another crane, a cool fire pit, some cool lampposts, several piles of lumber, and also some piles of planks, which I think are fun. Wish you can find some wooden planks around this camp that you can pick up and then whack a separatist over the head with. In the number 4 spot is Golanta Clearing. Returning to Road vs. Road for one last time, we can return to the Eternal Battlegrounds once again, but this time let's go to the southwestern corner of the map and look at the lumber mill, just south of the green team's keep, where this is just another pretty basic camp that has some buildings, a lot of piles of logs, and you can see the marshy trees off all around here that have been cut down to supply the war. Now this specific lumber mill is one of the most nostalgic locations in the game for me, because when I started playing Guild Wars 2 back in 2012 and started experiencing Road vs. Road for the first time, for whatever reason I fell in love with the Tower of Cloven Gully, just north of this camp, where I would sit in this tower, act as a scout for the area, refresh the siege, build up its defenses, and just escort a ton of Daliaks from Golanta Clearing into this tower, where because of that I also spent a ton of time in Golanta Clearing and just have a bunch of fond memories of this place. In the number 3 spot is Ojone's Lumber Mill. Pronouncing names in video games has got to be one of the things I am worst at, but this is a pretty iconic lumber mill that you can find in the Queen's Forest in Queensdale. You can see Queen's Forest with a bunch of woodcutters harvesting wood and being attacked by wasps, which if you continue through the forest, you will find the similarly iconic hunting lodge where hunters are hunting boars, but as you come into the mill itself, you can see several buildings with straw roofs, and I particularly like this building that has a ton of plants growing on it. You can find a lot of piles of wood in this camp, like a lot, which makes sense since this mill is providing wood for the entirety of Queensdale, which is important in order to rebuild structures that are damaged in the war against the centaurs, where I level all the carts around here that carry the wood further into Queensdale. You also have a nearby Scrit Cave where Scrit thieves will run out of and come try to steal the logging tools since they are shiny. You also have another windmill based saw blade with a lot of sawdust under it, as well as some wooden planks and bark. But a really cool aspect of this area is how it is along Lake Delavan, where there is a dock as well as a ton of logs in the water which you can jump around on. And maybe one of the best parts of this location, which has nothing to do with it, is the view, where from here you can see the Shaemore Garrison with the bridge that leads towards the Shaemore Graveyard, and then the human capital city of Divinity's Reach overlooking the map. In the number 2 spot is Bloodsaw Mill. Returning to Diasa Plateau one last time, we can find this mill much further north than the other two we have talked about in this list, where once again this place has a bit of a bigger operation compared to the other two, where this mill is a part of the Buliak Arsenal, which is a large char outpost in the area that primarily serves as a warehouse for the char forces in the area, where this place is super cool looking and very industrial looking, where the mill itself looks pretty cool and is pretty fortified. There's another massive saw blade with not one but 2 cranes and a bunch of piles of lumber, as well as some planks strewn about, where there's yet another task here where you can help the mill out, but instead of training Skilk or killing separatists, you are taking explosives and throwing them at trees and tree stumps, which I think this is a very fun concept, but maybe not super great at maximizing the amount of wood you get from trees. But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite lumber mill in all of Guild Wars 2, and it just has to go to the Harvest Den Lumber Mill. When I saw this mill for the first time, I instantly fell in love with it because it is just so cool looking. You have this fun coded structure that is right along the river, where you have a massive water wheel that is powering the saw blade, and I just love how the wheel looks with the river and the docks around here, where the structure itself is fun with the log in the center and the blade as well, which, fun fact, the saw blade will apply razor sharp teeth, which causes 10 seconds of bleeding that lasts for a whole minute for every second you are touching it, which is such a fun detail to this area that I love a lot. And if you get down to the saw blade, you get the hidden achievement, Workplace Safety. But you have some other fun details like piles of sawdust and bark, this pile of random logs, this cute little cart with tracks in the ground, and of course the villager working in here, where I want to give 3 quick shoutouts to 3 different elements slightly related to this place. One is the similar type of lumber mill that you can find in the Hearts Glow homestead, which is really cool. Another are the events around the map where you can use your Warclaw to fell trees for the Coden. And the final thing is the event where you jump around logs moving in the river as you collect frogs. So all in all, Lowland Shore is a huge map for lumber enthusiasts. but honestly, I love the lumber mill in Harveston so much. I think it reminds me a lot of the lumber mills in Skyrim that I have a lot of fond memories of, especially the one in Riverwood, where this lumber mill is just fantastic and is my favorite one in the entire game. In the number 10 spot is the Vision Palace. This is a castle and an area located in the northwestern corner of the domain of Abbey and is a big task area where you can help the rowers out here, and there are a ton of events going on here, where it is just a really cool looking Vabian style castle that is basically floating up in the sky, and I really love the structure of this building, as I love many of the structures of the Vabian buildings and buildings from the Path of Fire expansion in general, where this has some Jin vibes going on, but it feels very ornate and seems like a location where a lot of Vabian nobles would hang out at, which is the case if you ever explore around here, where there are a ton of buildings, a bunch of servants around here, and just a bunch of nobles hanging out into this castle. Of course, you got a statue of Palawajoko hanging out here looking over the nobles, because while the nobles may be rich, they are still under the domain of Palawajoko. And I just love how this castle looks, especially with the Joko statue, and I especially love when you go underneath the castle. There's a very beautiful garden located underneath the castle, and then you can find the big fountain even further underneath. In the number 9 spot are the Hole Gardener's Sandcastles, the newest addition to this list and also the smallest, where these are sandcastles located in the Shipwreck Strand. And a really funny thing that I never mentioned anywhere and I just thought in my head is that since we were going to Castoria, I thought it would be really fun if there was a sandcastle located somewhere in the starting map of the Shipwreck Strand. And then we explored the map and I found the sandcastle, and I thought it was just super cool, and I guess my thought became a reality, where this plays a part in the Hole Garden task, where you can help out to the Hole Gardeners, where you can go ahead and help out with building one of the sandcastles on the beach here, where you can go grab a bucket filled with sand, bring it over to the sandcastle build spot, and then you can build up a little bit of the structure and then go back to get more sand to then bring it back to finish the structure, where you can just build your own castle in Guild Wars 2, which is kind of exciting. And I guess you can do that inside of the homesteads as well, but this is out in the open world during a task, where you can also find a few other sandcastles along the beach here, and all of them are just super fun, and I love the idea of sandcastles, especially since I've enjoyed making sandcastles. In the number 8 spot is the Twisted Castle. This is a big location and also an encounter in the stronghold of the Faithful raid from the Forsaken Thicket, where this is a location that was once presumably a very strong and powerful castle that was hidden here within the Forsaken Thicket that the White Mantle were utilizing, but then it was twisted and warped by Zera's magic, where it is incredibly confusing to navigate through and is very, very, very cool looking, with a lot of different enemies you can fight in here and a bunch of challenges that you have to overcome as a group to progress through here, where ultimately this raid encounter is very easy, especially if you're using a guide in order to help you get through here, and I believe it can basically be done just by one person at the end of the day. But the environment is just so incredibly cool, and it feels like a very intimidating place to go through, and is also a very unique place because we see a lot of different twisted and warped areas around Tyria, but none that are specifically a giant castle that has been warped. In the number 7 spot is the Bone Palace. Returning to Elona, the Bone Palace is located in the Desolation and is the primary stronghold of Palawajoko, where it serves as a seat of power. And this area goes all the way back to the original Guild Wars, where you can find the Bone Palace located in the original Guild Wars, which looks a little bit different than it does in Guild Wars 2. But in Guild Wars 2, this is just a really fun place to come to and explore, where there's a big story step that takes place here, and there's a bunch of open world stuff that goes on, where it really fits into the vibes of Palawajoko, and I think it's just an incredibly cool looking structure that is just very intimidating. But once you learn about the story and the lore going on here, it becomes even more intimidating, where the entire structure was entirely built by the bones of centaurs, and maybe some other creatures were thrown in there as well, but Palawajoko wiped out most of the centaurs located in Elona and just used their bones in order to build this place, where at the end of the day the Elonian centaurs are now extinct, and one of the final remnants of their society is the Bone Palace, where you can just find all of their bones and allegedly you can hear the souls of those centaurs and other bodies located here screaming for release. In the number 6 spot is the Mantelet Refuge, where this is a monastery located in the Dredgehong Cliffs, and it's always been an incredibly interesting location for me because this is such a well fortified area with a big castle built into the cliffside that does serve as a monastery for the German priory, and beyond that we don't really know too much else about this location and why it was built up so much and what exactly is going on here, and so many other questions, where this has always been a standout spot for me as I explore through the world, because it does kind of just feel out of the place to some extent as we explore through the Dredgehong Cliffs, where there's a lot of dredge activity going on, and it kind of feels like a barren snowland waste, where suddenly you turn the corner and there's just a big castle hanging out here. But it does look incredibly cool, and I love all the structures built up alongside the castle with the ramparts that are going off of it with the other buildings and towers and whatnot. And I really hope someday we get to learn a little bit more about this place, just because I find it incredibly interesting. And it's not the only castle on this list that has been a location that we have wondered about for a long time, and some of these castles we learned a little bit more about. And the number 5 spot is that castle I was just alluding to, because it is the Wizard's Tower. This is one of the most iconic places in the entire Guild Wars franchise, going all the way back to the original Guild Wars, where this was a really cool location. And then with the launch of Guild Wars 2, this was another really cool and mysterious location that for the longest time we had no idea what was going on here, and could only learn a little bit when we were exploring around this area. And it has always been a structure that looks incredibly cool, and it's just a fantastic vibe of a massive castle / tower just floating in the sky that belonged to some wizard named Iskarin, which with the Secrets of the Obscure expansion, we learned a lot about this place. And into the Janther Wilds and the Visions of Eternity expansion, we learn a little bit more here and there, where there's a lot of lore and story going on with this location. But ultimately, it is just a really cool looking area, both in the open world of the Kessex Hills with its original look, but then also when we go to Omnitus and we visit the Wizard's Tower and we see it in its full glory. In the number 4 spot is Castle Thorn. This is a castle that you can really only ever see during the shadow of the Mad King Festival, and it is the castle for King Oswald Thorn, aka the primary antagonist or protagonist depending on your view of the Shadow of the Mad King Festival, where its exact location is unknown. And I think there's a lot of interesting story that could be dived into, where of course King Oswald Thorn was once a Crichton noble, and we know about the castle located in Lion's Arch that Queen Sama worked out of in the original Guild Wars, where this was maybe a castle that once existed somewhere, maybe in Lion's Arch, but then was ripped out of Tyria by Thorn. Or maybe it is a brand new castle altogether created by Thorn, but regardless of the lore, it is just a really interesting castle that you can find in the background of a couple of locations during the Shadow of the Mad King Festival as you explore through the Mad Realm, where there's also the Mad King's Clock Tower that can be seen with it, and then you can explore the Mad King's Clock Tower itself, so in some way you're maybe exploring part of the castle, but it's definitely a little confusing. But there's a little bit of story going on here, where there was the family business tale with the whole mob rebellion stuff that is related to the Shadow of the Mad King lore. But ultimately, it's just a really cool looking castle, and I love the bone ships and the structure itself and the floating island it's on, and it's just really, really cool looking. In the number 3 spot is Stone Mist Castle, maybe the first castle that most people watching this video thought of, because it is the most iconic castle in Guild Wars 2, where this is located at the center of the Eternal Battlegrounds in World vs. World, and is basically the most important structure in World vs. World, as it gives the most points and it allows a team to really have a ton of control over the Eternal Battlegrounds map, where there is a lot of action that goes on in this location, and many people have many memories of fighting over Stone Mist Castle and attempting to conquer it or defend it against enemies, and it just has provided a ton of fun experiences for many people, including myself. But to look at the castle structure itself, it is phenomenal. I love this castle so much, and it just goes super high up into the sky, where since it is World vs. World, you can pretty much explore the entire castle and fight along the entire castle, where it's just very complex but also very straightforward, with a ton of ramparts and towers and a bunch of nooks and crannies and just a ton of decorations that just make it look incredibly cool and a really iconic location to fight over. In the number 2 spot is Vigil Keep, located in Gandharn Fields, and this place can also be seen from the Wrathy Hinterlands. This is just an iconic location in Guild Wars 2 once again that serves as the primary headquarters for the Vigil, where you can go inside of the keep itself and explore a bunch of cool rooms. And I always love interior decorations in video games, and especially in Guild Wars 2, and I love exploring the inside of the Vigil HQ. But then you can also explore all the ramparts and up onto the towers and whatnot around here. And if you have the special pass, you can go onto the airship that is docked nearby. And there's just a bunch of NPCs that you can chat with and important vendors, and a bunch of story steps specifically for people who are members of the Vigil, but also during the Windworld Season 1 during the Battle for Lion's Arch, where Vigil Keep was the primary location to house refugees from Lion's Arch while it was being attacked by Scarlet Briar, where there's a ton of lore and story going on here and a bunch of important stuff. But the castle itself just looks so incredible and is really one of my favorite structures in all of Guild Wars 2. But now for the number 1 spot for my favorite castle in all of Guild Wars 2, and it just has to go to the Royal Palace, where this is the castle located in Divinity's Reach, and to some extent Divinity's Reach as a whole feels like one giant massive castle, where this entire city is connected to each other and is just a really monumental location that serves as the peak of the remainder of human civilization in Central Tyria, where the entire city leads towards the center of the city, with the upper city that is an incredibly iconic location that has a bunch of important locations like the Chamber of Ministers, but also the Royal Garden, a location that was built by Grand Wizard Garen, not Isgaren, but ordered by King Roderick to do so, where this location still exists to this day. And on the northern end, overlooking the entirety of the garden and all of the city of Divinity's Reach, is the Royal Palace, one of the most beautiful structures in the entire game that is so incredibly intricate in design, where there are a bunch of buildings around here that you can go inside and explore, with the Queen's throne room itself, which is absolutely incredible, but also the Seraph headquarters as well as the Shrine of the Six. But this is just the coolest looking castle in all of Guild Wars 2 for me personally, with so much foliage and so many different and interesting designs on the windows and the roofs and the walls, and just everything combined just makes this an incredibly cool looking castle, which is my favorite castle in all of Guild Wars 2. In the number 10 spot is the Gallow Fields. Located in the northwestern corner of Brisbane Wildlands, we have the region of the world where the Maguma jungle has been transitioning into the Maguma Wastes. This is a super interesting spot aesthetically because of that transition, but I think it is truly showcased with a canyon carved into the earth here that just screams Maguma to me. All around the canyon are various bandit forts, and nearby is a Skrit Scratch. I love the tiny bridges of stone connecting different parts of the canyon to each other, with all the routes going down into the canyon proper. We see some different alcoves all across the canyon, which are similar to other locations across Maguma, and throughout the canyon are a bunch of hyenas, and hyenas hanging out in canyons is just super nostalgic for me. But this canyon in particular is pretty well known amongst the Guild Wars 2 community because of the amount of ore veins all around here. You have a steady rich iron vein that players frequent, plus a bunch of other small veins that you can find if you travel through the canyon, making this place a good area to get iron ore, while also completing mining dailies wherever they pop up. And the number 9 spot is Lifeblood Ravine. In the northern part of the Desert Highlands, you can find the Lifeblood Falls, which are incredible waterfalls just pouring down into this canyon, forming a river that runs through the entirety of the canyon. This combination together just looks so incredibly cool, and I love how the canyon is dug super far down into the earth, with both natural and ogre-made bridges crossing it. Down in the canyon itself are a bunch of drakes hanging out in the water with the occasional plant here and there, but there's also a full-blown road that follows the river with a little barrier between the two, the occasional pillar, and some torches. And at the very northern end is an individual by the name of Tigme, who tells passerby that this road leads to the tunnel that takes you to Ebonhawk, but warns you that you can't pass through it because the Branded have caused the tunnel to collapse in on itself. First of all, this is just fantastic attention to detail, because we have had the desert gate that leads towards the Crystal Desert in the Fields of Ruin, which players have speculated about for a long time, and it is nice to see that passage referenced here. But second of all, it is fun to think about how this place may connect to a map in the future, and we may one day be able to walk from the Fields of Ruin to the Desert Highlands. In the number 8 spot are the Desolation Canyons. This is just a super general answer for pretty much the entire map of the Desolation. This is a map filled to the brim with a ton of canyons everywhere, and these are super iconic canyons as well because they are filled up with the dangerous sulfurous sands which require you to ride on a skimmer in order to safely navigate. And navigating through them can definitely be a little worse than just running through the map on land, but it can definitely be worthwhile at times to get to certain areas. Plus you have the Junundi Rising meta event that has you going into the canyons, which is fun, and the Maws of Tormod meta event also takes you through an area that resembles canyons as well at the Ruptured Heart. In the number 7 spot are the Switchback Canyons. This is an area in the central part of Firehard Rise alongside the Sweltering Canyons just north of it. There are a few map completion objectives around here, but the biggest thing is the task that takes place here. Because while the canyon looks super cool with all the rocks, trees and whatnot, the coolest part about this canyon is how it is basically a war zone. Throughout the canyon are a ton of Flame Legion soldiers that you need to fight against for the task. There are a bunch of traps set up everywhere that you have to avoid and disable. You have a small Ash Legion camp set up within the canyon that serves as a safe haven for you as you navigate through here, and ultimately it's just a really cool area with incredible vibes. In the number 6 spot is the Jaren Canyon. This canyon isn't specifically named, but it goes through the domain of Istan past the plains of Jaren. This area basically splits the eastern bulk of the map from the western bit, with a river that goes through here and a few bridges connecting the two halves. Up in the northern and southern bit, you have two pretty massive stretches where the canyon is super wide as it opens up towards the oceans, but in between the two, the canyon narrows and are pretty close together. Some players may recognize this area because you come through here while doing the skimmer race in the map, but beyond that, there isn't really anything too important here except how it divides and breaks up the map into opposite sections. Plus, it's just a really pretty looking canyon that is fun to explore through. In the number 5 spot is the Valley of Agony, a much more recent example of a canyon as we look at a new location found in the Mist-Burned Barrens. This is a massive canyon that stretches all the way from the Alliance staging ground through Seer's March and to Yagan's Gift. This area is the site of one of the final battles between the Seers and the Mersat, where the Seers are basically just annihilated here, and you can find many of their ghosts roaming the canyons, which is kind of cool. But you also see this area is completely filled up with Spectral Agony as it was unleashed upon the Seers and still radiates here to this day, which is also kind of cool. And the Spectral Agony plays a part in the gameplay of the map where it will kill you should you enter the canyon before it is cleared by completing the meta event here. And the meta event here is super fun and I have loved playing through it. Bouncing all around the canyon is super fun gameplay wise, for me at least, and I genuinely love coming through here just to play through this event, and it leads to 3 different final fights by Yagan's Gift, all of which are decently interesting and have you come into the end of the canyon, where the entire canyon as a whole is just really cool looking, but I also love all the other stuff around here, like this massive Mersat bridge going across the canyon. In the number 4 spot is Breakneck Pass. This might be one of the most well-known canyons in the entire game. It can be found in the Wayfarer foothills, and it is the primary exit out of the Norn starting area in the Borealis Forest towards the rest of the Wayfarer foothills. It is a very tall pass that just looks incredible. It occasionally gets blocked by the Sons of Svanir, and you have to clear them out of the way, and it is a pretty important pass as it allows travelers to reach Holbrak. But it's just a super beautiful looking canyon, and I love the transition out of the forest and into the foothills. It always feels incredible to travel through it, but I also love traveling atop the cliffside above the bottom of the canyon. You can get an incredible sight of Wayfarer foothills while also looking down into the canyon. Plus, as you pass through here, you get to see bunnies, which is fun. In the number 3 spot is Verdant Brink. Another somewhat general answer, but I do have a specific location picked out. Verdant Brink as a whole is just filled to the brim with canyons. There are so many of them everywhere, and during the Heart of Thorns expansion you have to navigate around them using your brand new masteries. And there are a ton of gameplay elements across different parts of many of the different canyons, but with the introduction of the Griffin and the Path of Fire expansion, a whole new element of gameplay was retroactively introduced to this map, as you can soar through these canyons on the Griffin, which is just a phenomenal experience. And Verdant Brink is one of my go-to locations for messing around on my Griffin. but one particular part of this massive canyon system I've always loved is the area around the Bugs and the Branches adventure. This is a super fun adventure that has you navigating all around this area to pick up some bugs. It's basically like an open air obstacle course where you have to plan out the best route to pick up the bugs as fast as possible. But the canyon that this adventure takes place in is just absolutely beautiful with this waterfall, all of the trees, and just everything else around here. It's a gorgeous area. In the number 2 spot is Lowland Shore. Yet another generic answer for us to talk about, but definitely a massive one. Lowland Shore is one of the newest maps added with the Jethir Wilds expansion and has skyrocketed to becoming one of my favorite maps in the entire game. And a prominent theme in this map is how it is situated on a massive delta that we had been wondering about for years and can now finally explore, where there are massive rivers cutting through the entire map in a variety of different directions that have formed this massive series of canyons that we get to explore through. And there's really just a lot of stuff we can look at here, but largely this entire map, all of the rivers, and all the canyons are absolutely incredible looking. You got a ton of waterfalls everywhere pouring down into even deeper canyons. When it comes to the verticality of this map, it is pretty tall, and that allows these canyons to be very massive. There are so many scenic shots that can be taken, and I can just keep rambling on and saying random things, which extends the duration of this video, allowing me to throw in some more footage for people to enjoy. Hey, did you know that you should subscribe if you haven't already? But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite canyon in all Guild Wars 2, and this is a very standout answer for me as it is the Temple of Cormyr Canyon. Another unnamed canyon, but it is a massive stretch of land that goes past the Temple of Cormyr. It basically starts away in the eastern part of the map and heads westwards towards the small body of water just north of the Northern Way Station. And I mean, look at it. I find this canyon to be one of the best pieces of art in all of Guild Wars 2. Whichever artists and map builders created this canyon specifically did an absolutely phenomenal job. I just love all the details put into the rock structures here alongside the canyon floor. There are a few different bridges all around here, including the major one that leads directly into the Temple of Cormyr, where you also got the village here with the roads around it that go along the canyon and look incredible. I also love this bridge that you cross to get over towards this area, and also this broken bridge. I remember playing the Path of Fire beta and thinking about how you can't cross this broken bridge until you upgrade your raptor. Once Path of Fire fully released, and I did upgrade my raptor, I came back to this area and jumped over the gap and just felt super rewarded. There's also a pretty big bounty fight that takes place down here underneath the Temple of Cormyr, which adds a little extra flavor to the canyon, and it is just filled to the brim with a bunch of dangerous hydras, which I find to be some of the most difficult mobs to fight in Guild Wars 2. But overall, this canyon is just incredible, absolutely beautiful, and is my favorite canyon in all of Guild Wars 2. In the number 10 spot are the Crow's Nest Tavern chairs. These are technically called estate fancy chairs and can be found all around the Crow's Nest Tavern in Lion's Arch. I've always liked these chairs a fair bit since we got the updated version of Lion's Arch. They are relatively basic looking but also decently fancy, a good combination for the location that they are at. Crow's Nest Tavern as a whole is a really cool little area with the stage and all of the tables, where it is a nice environment to just sit in these chairs. With the Seats of Power update in 2018 that introduced the ability to sit in chairs, for whatever reason these were the first chairs I thought of, maybe because I probably logged in at the Traders Forum and this was right next to me. So basically these are the first chairs I ever sat in, which I guess is kinda cool, but it's fun to sit in these every now and then, especially during the April Fool's event with the fashion show that goes on in the Crow's Nest Tavern. In the number 9 spot is the Bough of the Grove chair. Given the nature of this list, there are a couple of entries that are gem store items that I threw on this list just because I like them a fair bit. There are a ton of gem store exclusive chairs in the game that a lot of people like to buy or trade in gold to get. As a Safari character, this one always stuck out for me and I like it a lot. It is a very naturey, plant-based chair that at its core looks kind of like a small tree coming up out of the ground. Parts of the roots or trunk or whatever form a circular shape with a large leaf growing on top of it that serves as a seat for you to sit in. Then the tree continues further up with a bunch of vines, leaves, flowers, and some other little plants just growing out of the chair in pretty much every location. Altogether, it just looks very beautiful and it definitely represents the grove. In the number 8 spot is Smolder the Unflinching's throne. This is the chair that Imperator Smolder of the Iron Legion uses at the War Council inside of the Imperator's core in the Black Citadel, and presumably the chair that Imperator Mia Kindershot uses nowadays. It fits perfectly into the vibes of what I would expect from a char themed chair, and more specifically an Iron Legion char themed chair. It combines metal, leather, and fur together in the same style as most other Iron Legion things. There are some mechanical elements with these lights that look like forge vents or whatever, and there are also a lot of intricate designs around it. The chair itself overall looks like a bunch of metal plates just thrown together, and you even have 2 head carvings serving as the armrests for the chair. If you try to sit in the chair, you will notice a Smolder begins watching you, and some of the Iron Legion guards around here will begin reaching for their rifles, so you probably shouldn't sit here. In the number 7 spot is chair, as in the chair you get from Chairs of the World. Now, a really interesting thing here is that while this is a different type of chair, it is the same exact model as the Estate Fancy chairs we talked about earlier. But those chairs from earlier are specifically from Crow's Nest Tavern, and this chair is a reward that players can unlock by completing an achievement. That achievement, as I mentioned earlier, is called Chairs of the World, and was added with the seating update to Guild Wars 2. The objective is to go around the world and sit in a total of 42 different types of chairs. These are found in different regions and zones and towns and other descriptors for more specific areas that you would normally find a chair in. Some Norn ones, some Char ones, and so on and so forth. I think this achievement is incredible because it directly showcases the ability to sit in chairs, but also features and celebrates many of the different chairs you can find throughout Tyria. And if you complete it, you get the chair as a reward, which is a novelty item that allows you to sit anywhere you can use novelties at, like in the open world. You also get the Armchair Commander title, which is fun. And the number 6 spot is the Meandering Tortoise Chair, the last Gem Store exclusive chair that I wanted to highlight on this list, but I just have to. Most players know about the Siege Turtle mount you can unlock in the Ender Dragons expansion, but I have to say this little guy may even be better. It is basically a large turtle, but significantly smaller than a Siege Turtle that you can sit on. You can then hold a stick with a carrot tied in front of it and dangle that carrot in front of the turtle to make that turtle move forward with you on it. This is a common trope you see in so many different pieces of media, and it is fun to see it in Guild Wars 2. The turtle itself is just absolutely adorable, and I love it so much. But this also highlights a mechanic that we see with some other chairs that you can buy where you can move around while sitting in the chair. Obviously, it's always really slow and doesn't provide much of a gameplay purpose besides the fun of being able to move around while sitting in a chair. This opens up the opportunities for some different outfit designs, but can also be useful to adjust where you're sitting without having to get out of the chair. In the number 5 spot is Queen Jenna's Throne, another leader's chair, but this time maybe the most popular one in the entire game. You can find this in the Queen's Throne Room inside of Divinity's Reach, where this entire area is honestly incredible looking and perfectly fits as the throne room for the ruler of Kryda. It is just so incredibly intricate with many different statues, plants, an absolutely stunning ceiling, and the backdrop for the room. There's even a bridge in here. But the chair is also incredibly elegant looking and definitely fits in with the vibes of both this throne room, but also the vibes of Queen Jenna. Similar to Smolder the Unflinching's throne back in the Black Citadel, if you attempt to sit in this chair, you will get the prompt that Queen Jenna will give you a stern look, while Anise, the leader of the Shining Blade and basically Jenna's #1 bodyguard, will subtly shake her head. So really, just don't try to sit in the leaders of Tyria's chairs. In the number 4 spot is the Illusion of Sitting. Similar to the chair from Chairs of the World, this is a novelty item that you can unlock through a collection. The collection is a community achievement called Someone in Need, where you help an individual by the name of Zinnia, who is a member of the Mesmer Collective and is trapped, and you have to go track down the person who did this. There's a lot of story going on with this achievement and some more context I didn't mention, and I highly recommend you come and do this achievement to experience it yourself. But the gameplay basically takes you to a few different jumping puzzles around Tyria, and in each one you have to collect a bunch of orbs set up in the jumping puzzle. And as you complete each step and eventually complete the achievement, you unlock the detective title while also getting the Illusion of Sitting. This is a novelty toy item that is basically an invisible chair or an opportunity for your character to flex their core strength. When you use it, you can basically pretend to be sitting, and you can even change your pose to 3 different options with a serious pose, a relaxed pose, and an attentive pose. This chair and the collection is just really cool, but there's another big aspect of this chair that makes it even cooler. It was added as a part of Extra Life 2022, where April, the character you are chasing through this event, is based on and was helped to be created by a real life fan by the name of April, which I think is just incredible to see in Guild Wars 2. I'll post a link to learn more down in the description if you are interested. In the number 3 spot are the Club Canuck chairs. I recently highlighted my top 10 favorite things in Arborstone video, and as I explored through Club Connaught again, I remembered just how incredible these chairs are. There are a few different types of chairs in this place, and they all fit in with the vibe of this being a high-end but underground establishment. You have these simple green, or jade if you will, couches that really fit in with the vibes of the Ender Dragons expansion and Cantha as a whole. I love the two little cushions and just the overall design, but then you also got these red couches that are pretty similar to the green ones and also fit in with the vibes of Cantha but look a little bit higher end. These chairs are set up in different areas all around the club, and there are a ton of them. There really is no shortage of seating here. If you head back to Connaught's office, which is incredible looking by the way, you can find this single high back chair with green cushions and a green board with a red outline and trim. It looks incredible, fits in very well with all the other decorations in Connaught's office, and definitely seems like the chair that Connaught would sit in. But my favorite chairs in the entire establishment are the green booths. I love booths a lot, and I'll give a quick shout out to the Crichton ones on the honorable mentions list, but these ones inside of Club Connaught are very cool looking, and I love all the little alcoves they are in. In the number 2 spot is the Bench of the Final Judge. This is kind of a 2-for-1. Doom is a legendary villain that you fight in both the original Guild Wars and in Guild Wars 2. In Guild Wars 2, he serves as the final boss of the Hall of Chains raid, and is just an altogether incredible villain with an amazing boss fight. But in the final location of Death's Landing where you fight Doom, the entire place is overshadowed by his throne, which looks absolutely incredible. It is absolutely massive, which is necessary given the fact that Doom himself is a very large and intimidating enemy, but occasionally upon killing Doom, or by buying this item with magnetite shards, or by buying this item on the trading post, you can get the Shrouded Bench of the Final Judge, which is your very own version of Doom's throne. It looks just like Doom's throne, but is obviously scaled down a lot to allow you, a lowly hero, to be able to sit on it. But it is still just super cool looking and feels super prestigious, even if you can just buy it with gold. But now for the number 1 spot for my favorite chair in all of Guild Wars 2, and it has to go to the Sylvan Seeds Jewel. As a die-hard Sylvari fan and a general nature lover, I am always going to love Sylvari themed assets. These Seeds Jewels can specifically be found in the Hidden Shelter, Starbower Nursery, and the Dreamer's Terrace in the Grove, but I think you can find the model used here and there throughout the world. From all those places, the ones at the Starbower Nursery are my favorite, just because this is a really cool Sylvari themed bar in the Grove with the iconic peppermint candy entrance. The stools are pretty basic looking with a large stalk, a few vines and leaves, and then a larger flower-like sitting structure on the top with a big central area and some large petals. So basically they're just like really bulky flowers that are strong enough to seat you. At the Starbower Nursery, they can be found all around here and are actually set up around mushroom tables, which are also incredible looking. Together they create a bar or restaurant type of environment, but just really make it incredibly Sylvari themed, which I just love a lot. In the number 10 spot is the Vitendi Academy. This is a location in the domain of Vabi, which a lot of players should be very familiar with because this is a pretty iconic location with a big task going on. This entire area serves as a school, or an academy if you will, for some of the students in Vabi. Or for anyone who has done events around here and tasks around here should be really familiar with about how the school operates in total reverence to Palawa Joko, where students are being taught alternative histories, where apparently Palawa Joko is the individual who killed Seitung and who's going to defeat Balthazar, and who's basically responsible for so many phenomenal things that have happened all across the world, and it is most definitely not the pack commander or anybody else, most definitely not. And as such, a lot of the books around here basically serve for that narrative piece in order to praise Joko, if you will. And I think it's always kind of interesting and fun to read those. Plus, there's just a lot of different like bookshelves and just like general scrolls and whatnot all around here that help create this academy feel like an academy and a library. In the number 9 spot is the Astralarium, another location from the Path of Fire expansion in Living World Season 4. We can go to the Domain of Istan, where this is another iconic location that is one of the biggest things from this update. Where the Astralarium as a whole is a really cool looking structure and is one of the most unique structures in the entire game, where it serves a lot of astronomy purposes and whatnot, but there are a ton of books and different libraries and just bookshelves all around here, where there are a lot of books that you can actually collect and just like so many different books that you can read, where this is just definitely a really cool looking area that is always fun to explore, and there are like a couple of different events and a task that you can complete around here. But just like running around here and exploring all of the books and kind of diving deep into some of the different libraries located here is just a phenomenal experience whenever you come through this part of the world. In the number 8 spot are the Kestrel Archives. This is a library located in Arborstone, which is the fun player hub from the End of Dragons expansion, where there are a ton of great things all across Arborstone, and the Kestrel Archives are one of my favorites, where this is just a really cool looking library that the Kestrels are basically using, where there is a lot of ancient and interesting history in Cantha, and it is cool to see that some individuals within the Kestrels, plus outside of the Kestrels, are working to try to preserve some of that history and some of that knowledge, especially with some of the events that have happened throughout Cantha's history, where it is fun to come through the Kestrel Archives and just explore this entire area with the tall bookshelves and all the different interesting books that you can read. On top of all that, there's also a side story that takes you through here where you can help out an interesting character that many players should be familiar with, and it's fun to just like complete a side story that is connected to a library that takes you to a few different areas. In the number 7 spot is the Mantle's Arrival Library, our first library that we are talking about from the Janther Wilds expansion and the most recent map introduced to the game in Bavanissos, where this is just on the edge of Bavanissos in the Mantle's Arrival, which is the first part of the map, where you have the northern area and the southern area. Both of these areas have different events, and in the northern area you have this library, which is just a really cool looking library, and it's also really cool to see some knowledge connected to the Mersat, because the Mersat are one of the most ancient races on Tyria and would presumably have learned a lot, where you can read a couple of books around here where you can learn that the Mersat definitely knew a lot of different things. And there is a really fun event going through here that is one of my favorite events in this entire map actually, where you can help categorize some of the books and you get a little snippet of history or flavorful dialogue here and there as you complete the event. Where it's really cool to see another event that is entirely dedicated to the concept of like books and a library, where it just feels like very thematic for what this area is. And that this area is just like a really cool and interesting looking area with the entire like massive like Mersat Bavanissos structure around here. And then you do have Seitung Saxon in the background kind of just hanging out, but it's fun to just see all the libraries and all of the books. In the number 6 spot is the Dermond Hall. This is a library located in Divinity's Reach, and because of that, it just feels kind of like a classic looking library, where this does serve as the Dermond Priory's primary outpost in Divinity's Reach, as each of the 3 different orders of Tyria have an outpost in each of the racial capital cities, and this is where the Dermond Priory is in Divinity's Reach, where it's just a really fun looking library that feels really close to the aesthetics of Divinity's Reach, where you can just like walk around this entire area, pop into the library, and like presumably you would be able to like check out a book, but there are just like a ton of books around here that you, the player, can read as well to learn a lot of interesting things, especially some of like the historical background and some of the lore of the entire Guild Wars franchise that you can read in this area, which I think is great for new players to come in here to just learn some of that more basic, simple lore in order to help you understand Tyria more, understand what's going on in the world, why you're in the world, and just learn some interesting fun things. I also give a shout out to basically the entire like central ring, and I guess to some extent the entirety of Divinity's Reach, where there are just like a ton of books all around this city. But I particularly like the book carts that you can find around this ring, where if you step outside of the Dermond Hall, you can find some of those book carts where you can go run up to them and you can interact with them to see what books that are on display, which is always really fun, and you can find a few fun things as you do that. In the number 5 spot is the Grand Library of Omnitus, and this is just a grand library as the name suggests, where this is a beautiful location that really fits into the themes of Omnitus, and I feel like this is a location that many players who play through Omnitus probably miss because there isn't like too many important things going on here, but if you do come through here and just like explore this entire area, it is absolutely stunning, where it goes up pretty tall and you have these massive pillars and these like massive bridges connecting different parts, and there are just like so many different tables and chairs all around here and so many bookshelves. Like this really does feel like a central area of knowledge, which makes a lot of sense since this is inside of the Bastion of Knowledge, and it just feels like a very like fitting area for the Wizard's Court and the Astral Ward inside of Omnitus, where they are a group of people who have a lot of knowledge about the world of Tyria and would collect that knowledge in order to preserve it and to also study it. And just all in all, it is a very phenomenal library. I'll also give a quick shout out to the Museum of Curiosities, which is also in the Bastion of Knowledge and is just north of here, which is one of my favorite areas in all of Omnitus, and it's just a really cool looking area with a ton of interesting plaques that you can read and just see a lot of fun, exciting things. In the number 4 spot is Caudicus's Reading Room. This is an area inside of Caudicus's Manor at the Shire of Beetleton in Queensdale that you access during the dungeon version of Caudicus's Manor, and it is just a really cool looking area with a ton of bookshelves and just books everywhere, where presumably Caudicus Beetlestone has just bought a ton of books and just keeps buying more and more books and doesn't have like enough room for them, so he kind of just throws them on the floor, which I feel like is something that some people definitely relate to. But while I like the reading room, and while it is like specifically the library inside of Caudicus's Manor, I want to give a very quick shout out to like the rest of Caudicus's Manor, because there are just a ton of books all around here. And then very specifically, inside of Caudicus's Manor, we have the main central area, which isn't technically like classified as a library, and it is considered the Grand Salon according to the point of interest, but this is my favorite library here in all of Caudicus's Manor, if you want to call it a library, where there are a ton of bookshelves all around here, so much more than in Caudicus's Reading Room. And it is really cool to see like all the books here with like the giant chandelier and this massive fireplace and all the different decorations, where I really love all the like paintings and stuff on the walls and like the interesting design on the roof, and just all the different details around here makes this just an incredible little area. So the reading room and the rest of Caudicus's Manor, and especially this area, is in the number 4 spot. In the number 3 spot is the Veiled Library, another library from the Janther Wilds expansion from the Mistburned Barrens map, and this is just another incredible area. It feels in some ways kind of like the Grand Library of Omnitus in design, where it is just a really grand looking library and is absolutely massive, but it looks kind of like the polar opposite of the Grand Library of Omnitus, where it is all dark and kind of like destroyed and decrepit, where there are a ton of like creatures around here that are going to try to kill you, but there are just like so many books that just go super high up in the sky. And this entire area is just incredible looking, like the rest of the Mistburned Barrens. It's just a phenomenal looking map, where it just does feel like the Mersat used to be like a very powerful and grand race, but has fallen to ruin as the Mersat are now extinct. But there's also a bunch of books around here that you can read, which is fun, and it's interesting to come through here and read them because it helps provide some more background for the Mersat and also for the events in this map, which a lot of people kind of felt a little bit weird about this map, but after reading through some of the books in the library, they feel much better about this map following its release. In the number 2 spot is the Sanctum, and this is a massive area which serves as an important location for the Path of Fire story, where you meet the goddess Cormyr. Where Cormyr is a very interesting character who is deeply connected to the idea of knowledge. And then here in the Sanctum, which is the domain of the goddess Cormyr, and it's also part of the Realm of Torment since Cormyr has taken over large parts of the Realm of Torment, we can see that this does serve as a massive location of knowledge, where this is the biggest library in the entire Guild Wars franchise, both in lore and also in like actual gameplay, where this library contains the sum of all knowledge in Tyria and presumably potentially beyond. But there are just so many cool and interesting things all around here, and it looks absolutely incredible. It is one of the best looking locations from the Path of Fire expansion, and the Path of Fire expansion provided many cool looking areas. There's also the Dark Library, which is kind of like a twisted version of this place that you can come to after the story, where demons are invading it, and it just looks really cool as well. But I just love all of the different bookshelves and all the different like spiral staircases that take you up to different parts of this entire library, and how you can just see books and scrolls and everything else in so many different areas all around here, and it just looks like an incredible location and is a phenomenal library. But now for the number one spot for my favorite library in all Guild Wars 2, and it has to go to the Dermot Priory Library, where the entire Dermot Priory Monastery is super cool, and let's just work from the top to the bottom. We're in the heart of the Priory, in the main open world version of the Dermot Priory. We have this incredible looking structure here with all of these different tablets and this hero challenge that you can commune with, and this just looks incredible. But then you can enter the inner sanctum of the Dermot Priory Monastery, which is a big circular area with a massive library and a classroom. And this entire area is really cool as well. And I love seeing all the books in the library, and I love this entire classroom vibe. It just feels really cool. And then there's also some sleeping quarters and a kitchen and some other stuff around here as well. Where in the kitchen, you can then go ahead and find the entrance to the Special Collections, which is a special instance that you can enter during a few different story steps throughout Guild Wars 2, and this is an absolutely incredible area, where it is a massive combination of a library and a museum, where there are so many cool different things on the museum side of things that you can see, including a part of Zaitan's tale, and just so many other interesting things. But there are a lot of books, all around here, where I love the central bookshelves, but then there's all the different wings that go off from the center with so many different bookshelves, and you can explore this area and read a bunch of books yourself. And I think just everything in this area combined together just makes it feel like an incredible looking location that just has an incredible vibe, and just feels like an absolutely massive library that any scholar of Tyria would spend days, months, potentially years just trying to read through everything and consume the knowledge that the Dermot Priory have put into this entire location. Throughout the world of Tyria are many incredible map completion objectives. Vistas are something that I've talked a lot about on my channel before, and there are definitely a fair number of them throughout Tyria that always offer beautiful scenic views of the areas around where they are located. From rolling hills to incredible structures, there is definitely no shortage of incredible sights to find throughout the game. Exploring each map in its entirety and viewing every vista can definitely be a bit challenging, but it can definitely be worth it to see the sights that await you. For me personally, I definitely have quite a few vistas that I like a lot, which you have been looking at. Beyond vistas, there are also quite a few hero challenges throughout the game that you can complete. With the Visions of Eternity expansion, we see hero challenges making their return after being gone for some time. And with these hero challenges, each profession in the game has a hero challenge somewhere in Castora that is uniquely special for them, that allows them to complete said hero challenge in an easier way. For example, with the Misplaced Inquest Box hero challenge in the Shipwreck Strand, normally you would have to complete a little minigame in order to open the box to complete the hero challenge, but if you are a warrior, you can use your brute strength to just open the box immediately, skipping that minigame if you want. Very similar to Vistas, there are many points of interest all around Tyria. While Vistas allow you to reach a special location to see a beautiful sight, points of interest are often beautiful sights in and of themselves. They are often important locations that have something worthwhile, be it services that a player can interact with, important events or challenges to complete, or just something that is really interesting to see. And the last idea of open world exploration that I want to highlight right now are waypoints. These basically serve as checkpoints around the world, as once you unlock a waypoint, you can return to it from anywhere in the world. There are many of them throughout the game, and they are always important to unlock, but the look of waypoints is something that many players gloss over, with their original look being of a certain design. Oftentimes, a waypoint will become contested if there is a dangerous event happening right around where that waypoint is located, but you can also find destroyed waypoints that have been impacted by the actions of the Elder Dragon Mordramoth that anyone who has played through Living World Season 2 should be familiar with. With the End of Dragons expansion, we also see that the people of Cantha have waypoints of their own that look very different than the waypoints the Asura have made. I think this is just an incredibly cool idea that makes a lot of sense for the story of End of Dragons, and adds a lot of flavor to Cantha. But then we see this again with the Secrets of the Obscure expansion, where the Astral Ward have waypoints of their own with their own design. But the contested version of these waypoints are cooler than the rest, as the Cryptus will corrupt the waypoint in this very unique way. Darkness and hatred, two incredibly potent forces that can feed off of each other to turn one from the path of righteousness, to take the intrinsic values of love, peace, and harmony and manipulate it into villainy. Is it nature or nurture that determines the actions of an individual? Scholars have debated that question for millennia, arguing one side of the coin versus the other, propositioning that it could be neither, but realizing that it is likely both. But one powerful force is the existence of nature that is nurtured by an internal force. In 1304 after Exodus, the firstborn Savari awoke underneath the shadows of the Pale Tree. Traherne, born in the cycle of dusk, was the first Savari to emerge from the Pale Tree, but following in his footsteps was Fallon and 10 others. These 12 Savari were put forth into a bright, wide world, where these first Savari acted to set the foundations for their race, building up a civilization surrounding the Pale Tree while attempting to learn more about the world around them. But while most of the Savari worked to build up the grove and tend to the Pale Tree, two individuals desired to explore the world of Tyria and learn as much about it as possible, Kaith and Fallon. Where the story of one is often intertwined with the other, from stepping stones to great fields to dense jungles, the world of Tyria was new, and these adventurers sought to learn more about the world they had been thrown into, and with every step taken, the two grew a bond that would become more and more inseparable. But while love may foster, darkness is sometimes not far behind. As the two ventured through the ruined kingdom of Or, they stumbled upon something that would change their paths forever, something that felt oh so similar, but with a twisted taint that stenched the air. The nightmare, a dark and twisted version of the dream that fosters painful memories and turns those exposed to it into a cruel version of their former selves. While Kaith was abhorred by this aberration, Fallon began to slowly embrace it. As the two carried on with their adventures, their bonds would slowly begin to shatter as they drifted apart from each other in every aspect of the word. Fallon took in an apprentice and became friends with others who began to share similar ideas to her, twisting and turning various Savari and influencing them towards the path of the nightmare. Working alongside another Savari, the first of the second-born, by the name of Kadrin, a group of people who opposed the Pale Tree and the teachings of Ventari grew in numbers, and over time would morph into the organization known as the Nightmare Court. Because of Fallon's exposure to the nightmare, she began to foster a growing distrust of the Pale Tree, becoming cautious and suspicious of the activities of other Savari, where her obsession escalated when she discovered that another Savari firstborn by the name of Wynn had a conversation with the Pale Tree about the fate of the Savari race as a whole, a piece of information that only the Pale Tree and Wynn knew about, a fate that may change the destiny of the Savari as a whole, a secret that Fallon wanted to know. As Kaith and Fallon continued to explore the world, their relationship began to grow more and more distant. From close to home to further away, the two interacted with the world as a whole, exploring new locations, seeing new sights, and negotiating with the other races of Tyria. But the course of Fallon's destiny would soon change forever. Kaith and Fallon traveled to the far Silver Wastes to find and meet up with Wynn, who was meeting with a peaceful Maguma tribe of centaurs, but unknown to Kaith, Fallon had summoned the fledgling Nightmare Court, and while Kaith was distracted, the Nightmare Court began to lay siege to the Centaur tribe, wiping out the entire community. Wynn and Kaith were appalled, where Wynn ran away, but Kaith felt obliged to help Fallon and the Nightmare Court with the Centaurs attacking them. After the Centaurs were massacred, Kaith and Fallon continued into the cave that Wynn had ran into and cornered her.
You're not leaving until you tell me the truth.
Why? Why are you doing this?
Because I need to know. We need to know. Tell me what you and Mother were talking about that day.
Fallon, this isn't necessary. Please, Fallon, stop this. Please. I promised our mother I wouldn't tell anyone. Please. Let's go talk to her.
I'll make you wish you'd never left the dream, traitor.
Fallon left to retrieve the thorns of a bristleburn plant in order to torture the secret out of Wynn, leaving Kaith alone with her.
I can't tell her what she's asking for, Kaith. You've seen what Fallon's capable of. She massacred those centaurs.
They attacked first. She had to defend herself.
She struck first. He was unarmed.
No, I don't think she'd...
She'll torture me until I tell my secret. That will be the end of our kind.
The end of Silvari? What do you mean?
We come from the jungle dragon. We belong to it. We're meant to serve it.
You're lying!
I saw it in my dream. And if Fallon knew, she wouldn't keep it a secret. She'd use it against Mother. When word got out, the world would see us as monsters. You know her. All she wants is power. Think. She will break me unless you kill me first. Fallon must never learn. Please, kill me now. She's coming.
I will bear your pain, sister.
Hurry.
What have you done? Did she talk?
No. Nothing of consequence.
Because of the atrocities committed on this day, the wedge driving these two Silvari apart widened, and that cycle became irreversible. Kaith told Fallon to never return to the Grove, and Fallon embraced the nightmare even more, becoming the proper leader of this new nightmare court and driving more Silvari towards the nightmare. In the years that followed, Fallon and Kaith would have the occasional interaction. As Kaith joined the heroic guild known as Destiny's Edge, Fallon stalked the group and continued to win back Kaith's favor, where Fallon's genius plan was to poison Kaith and only give her the cure should Kaith join her. But eventually, Fallon gave Kaith the cure upon Kaith's request so that she could continue with Destiny's Edge and face Krakatorrik, though eventually fail. Years later, Kaith journeyed to the Twilight Arbor deep inside of the Caledon Forest to investigate the disappearance of local Silvari, where she brought with her some disgruntled members of her guild, Destiny's Edge, who had failed in their quest to defeat Krakatorrik, as well as a group of adventurers.
Here comes our final hero.
Kaith, I'm sorry I'm late. You.
Good to see you, Logan. Now we can begin.
Conniving vegetable. You never said anything about him being here.
I asked him to attend. I need all of your help to deal with Fallon.
It sounds like this Fallon and you have history.
Fallon is firstborn, like me. She's powerful and dangerous. But she wasn't always that way. When our race was new, we traveled together, her and I. We became close. We found a great darkness. I pulled back from it. Fallon embraced it. She seduces others to unspeakable acts. I cannot stop her alone. That is why I need you, and Ritlock, and Logan.
I will not work with this human. He'll desert us again.
I did what I had to do.
Then you can do this without me. If I see you again, Logan, I will carve you.
Who's deserting us now? Make a good team. Who's Ritlock anyway?
We do. We are weaker without you. Just as we were when you abandoned us.
This again? I expect this from Ritlock, but not from you. I am not a coward. I put up with your schemes and you insult me. I'm done with you. Finish this on your own.
Hello, dear heart. I see your friends have already abandoned you. How does it feel?
Fallon, it is time to end this madness.
The madness is yours. You rely on others when you know you belong here. With me.
I've moved on.
We shall see, dear heart. We shall see. 3 of my champions are here. I look forward to seeing how you and your remaining allies fare against them. Keith, meet my first champion, Sariel.
We've met. She is not worthy of you.
Oh, Fallon, what have you done to this poor girl?
I'm no girl. I am Fallon's chosen.
See how easily you were replaced, dear heart? But say the word, and you can be my favorite again.
No! I am your favorite, and I always will be. Nothing will ever change that. I'll kill you, Keith. Slowly and painfully.
You children have fun. You've done well against poor little Sariel, my pet. How will you fare against Sir Brainguar, Knight of the Court?
I am not some rat in your maze. We were entwined.
I sense fear in her, Lady Fallon. How delightful. But can she harness it? Are you sure she is worthy?
Feel free to test her mettle. She'll be up to the challenge.
So, the Firstborn continues her futile quest.
Face the truth, dear heart. The dream is a nightmare. See the world for what it is. Episodes of pain ending in untimely death.
Our paths diverged long ago. I chose the dream of our people. You, a twisted phantasm. The love I once knew has died. I won't let you continue like this.
You will regret speaking to the mistress that way.
Here at last, dear heart. Are you prepared to join me?
I will never be with you.
Not even to be with your friends. Well, they've already made their choice.
Join us, Keith.
This is the only rational choice.
We can all be together again.
Fallon has brought us together. Be with us.
Everyone stands against me. I have no one left.
This can't be real. Ritlock and Logan can't stomach each other.
Real or not, we have to deal with them. End the charade now, Fallon.
But dear heart, you used to enjoy our little games of make-believe.
I'm done with your games, and I'm finished with you. I am not your dear heart.
We shall see, dear heart. We shall see.
Damn her. Damn me for my weakness.
Following Fallon's defeat in the Twilight Arbor, she departed from the Arbor, which began a series of conflicts within the Nightmare Court. Various counts and countesses began to compete for control of the Nightmare Court, while a splinter faction known as the Toxic Court left to work for the crazed Savari Scarlet Briar. One important individual known as Duchess Chrysanthia became a prominent figure within the Nightmare Court and is poised to take control of the faction. A few years passed after Kate's adventures in the Twilight Arbor, where the forces of Tarir began to move against the Elder Dragon Mordermoth, who had recently awoken due to the efforts of Scarlet Briar. As the Pack fleet attacked Mordermoth's territory and subsequently suffered a massive defeat, various high-ranking members of the Pact and Destiny's Edge were captured by Mordermoth and dragged further into the jungle. This brought the Pack commander and allies to pursue leads on their captured friends. As the group found the captured Norn hero Aristigauken of Destiny's Edge, they came to find her captured alongside Fallon, who had made her way to the jungle after she had learned about the true purpose of the Savari and how they were destined to be the servants of Mordermoth.
Oh, a rescue party. Then Wolf did hear me. In here, they're starving us. No food or water for days.
That's because Mordermoth doesn't care if we're alive or dead when it plugs us into a blighting tree. Release us! Now!
Fallon, why is Mordermoth locking up so many nightmare courtiers?
You know nothing of the court. We seek freedom, and Mordermoth's yoke is even more onerous than the Pale Trees.
Forget her, just get me out! The Mordrim took Logan and Zojja and Traherne deeper in the jungle, and I don't know why.
Hang on, Mother. We're about to bust you out of there.
Oh, it's the second-class second-born. I thought you were in jail, little brother.
I negotiated my way out. Unlike you, I realized how pointless and destructive my chosen course was, so I changed it.
Oh, but you're still a prisoner. And you will be, until you stop trying to prove you're nobler than you actually are.
Head to the overpass. We can cut it off there.
We have to keep moving.
I like my chances better this way.
Mother, look out! No!
Following Fallon's, you can say, betrayal, but this is honestly expected, the group reeled from the loss of air and continued further into the jungle. It would not take long for the group to discover that Fallon had not been killed.
It's Kaith. And is that your egg she's carrying?
You've done well, Kit.
Fallon?
Bring the egg to me.
What? The egg? The egg is my wild hunt, and I can only trust myself with it.
We can all trust Mordermoth.
Fallon? No!
I need the egg!
Get the egg and run!
Captured by Mordermoth, Fallon would indeed experience the intended destiny of the Savari and became a powerful minion of Mordermoth. Twisted and turned into a Mordrim Vinetooth, Fallon would chase the Pack Commander, but eventually fail. As the Pack Commander and their allies continued through the jungle, they would eventually come to head with Fallon once again, protecting the Heart of Thorns, the core of Mordermoth.
Isn't this touching? Destiny's Edge reunited at last. Zojja, you're looking well.
Fallon.
It isn't Fallon. Mordermoth is behind those eyes.
Whoever it is about to be put in a grave.
You'll have to catch me first. You slaughter Zoj's children so easily. They were so beautiful. So much better than their mother.
They're monsters!
Don't you see? Harmony is coming, and you will join Mordremoth.
Your harmony is slavery, and we will not stand for it.
You may have uprooted Zoja and Logan, but you'll never make it to Traherne. He'll have the pleasure of following his true master.
He'd rather die than serve you.
Soon, he won't be able to tell the difference. Soon, he'll become part of us. You cannot stop the inevitable. You cannot silence the pulse of this world. Traherne is ours!
Not while any of us still breathe.
Falin would attack the group once again, but with the help of Kaith, the group was able to drive Falin into the ground, avenging the loss of air, and ending Falin's reign forever. With the upcoming Visions of Eternity expansion for Guild Wars 2, we will be dealing with the Inquest. Short for the Asuran Inquisition, this is an organization that primarily fixates on the ideas of the eternal alchemy, and how the entire magical systems of the planet and universe are connected and important. Fixated so much so that they believe that the eternal alchemy is a tool, not a concept that can be mastered and used for their own purposes. Purposes that tend to relate to Asuran supremacy and cementing the Inquest above all others. Throughout Tyria and across the last several decades, the Inquest have grown to a tremendous size. While they are often viewed as a fourth college, alongside Radissum's colleges of statics, dynamics, and synergetics, in reality they operate much more like a massive crew, consisting of a wide variety of small crews working on specific tasks. But due to the Asuran political system, and despite any criminal activity or ethical transgressions by the Inquest are often viewed as equals in Asuran society and often have a place alongside other Asura. However, that doesn't stop them from committing those aforementioned crimes and ethical transgressions, which often brings them into conflict with other Asura, other factions, and people, and oftentimes the various heroes of Tyria. From the Sandswept Isles to the Blazewood Steppes to Drytop and everywhere in between and beyond, anyone who has explored Tyria will likely come into contact with the Inquest. And as the adventurers of Tyria head to the enigmatic island of Castora, they will encounter the Inquest and explore why exactly they are on the island and what they want to do with the ley lines and any other mysteries found on the island. The leader of the Inquest on Castora is currently largely unknown, but with what little we have, looks incredibly interesting and intimidating. But this interesting character feels very similar to another powerful Inquest we have experienced in Guild Wars 2, Kudu. While these two individuals are different and the stories and contexts of the environments they are in are completely different, learning about Kudu may help give us a better understanding of this upcoming villain. Kudu was once an apprentice of Snaf alongside Zoja. With Snaf's and Kudu's research, they discovered a lot about dragon energies and how each of the elder dragons gave off their own unique magical energies. While Snaf decided that this research was too dangerous, and while he began to work with Zoja more and more, Kudu decided to go his own way and take what he learned with Snaf and begin to push further into this field of science. As Kudu left, he took research, designs, and some technology from Snaf, and then went on a quest to scheme his way to more power with the Inquest, gaining more and more allies, some of whom were powerful and influential in their own right, who all worked towards gaining more power. Throughout this time, Kudu stole and schemed and robbed and killed and lied his way to gaining more power while becoming more and more infatuated with the concepts of the dragon magics, doing research, using test subjects, and committing whatever act he needed to further his own research on the dragons. Given Zojja and Kudu's history of both being apprentices of Snaf, the two built a rivalry between each other and were often seen as opposites. This led Zojja down a path of seeking justice against Kudu for the crimes that he committed, not only to their mutual mentor Snaf and his legacy, but also to all the others that Kudu had wronged. This eventually brought Zojja to Sorrow's Embrace, the dredge stronghold once known as Sorrow's Furnace, where Kudu and the Inquest were working with some of the dredge located within.
Keith, what are you doing here? And why did you bring that Norn with you?
Keith told me you came down here. I was worried about you.
Worried that the little apprentice couldn't handle herself?
That's not what I meant.
Or maybe you were just hoping to see another Asura die. Is that it?
I just came here to help.
Your help gets people killed. I don't need it, and I don't need you.
Fine. If you don't need me, I'll leave you to your petty vengeances.
Zojja, don't be foolish.
No, she's right. You don't need me. No one really needs me, do they? Come, Garm.
Let her go, Keith. She knows I'm right. She's lost her nerve. What good is she?
I thought you were smarter than this, Zojja.
I am. And we've got more important things to worry about. We need to find the Inquest, and, more importantly, find their leader. Kudu! I knew you were behind all of this!
Obviously. Who else could bend the dredge to my will? Not you, of course. You were never that smart.
You're using Snaf's discoveries for evil.
Zojja, please. I was smarter than Snaf when you were still playing with blocks. I think he'd be proud to see what I've done with his theories about dragon energy.
Snaf would never approve of such things. I'm here to stop you.
Oh, I see I've hit a nerve. Fancy that. Still protective of our old master, eh? You should see what I'm building down here. Pity that my golems will destroy you first and you'll die in ignorance. You always were crafty, Zojja. But craftiness is not true genius.
Come down and fight, you coward!
Let me think about it. No, I don't think so. But if you survive long enough to follow me, I'd love to show you my latest creation. Do you like my latest? It's better than anything our Master Snaf ever did. I have harnessed dragon energies to power it.
You've perverted Snaf's theories, and you will be punished for this.
I may be punished, but not by you. I have places to go and people to kill, but I leave my creation here to keep you company. Ta!
Sometime after their adventures in Sorrow's Furnace, it came time for Zojja to pursue Kudu once again after tracking him to the infinite coil reactor within Mount Maelstrom, a massive Asuran complex dedicated almost entirely to the study of dragon energies. In order to put an end to Kudu, Zojja had to dive deep into the Crucible of Eternity.
Welcome to the Crucible of Eternity. This is the heart of the Inquest, and here is where we will find Kudu. If I'm going to stop the Inquest, I'm going to need help. That's where you come in.
Don't leave yet, Zojja.
Not without us.
Rytlock? Logan? Together?
We've been talking. We're good again.
Actually, it's a work in progress.
Who are you two, and what have you done with Logan and Rytlock? Never mind. You're here, we've got a job to do, no sass, no backtalk. I've been tracking down a nasty piece of work named Kudu. He's been using dragon energies in his work.
Isn't Kudu a girl's name?
Focus here. He's been using Snaf's research, and I intend to stop him. We're literally going to get to the bottom of this. There is a security station up ahead. We're going to hit it hard, then work our way down into the heart of the Crucible.
Enough talk, then. Let's go.
Power. I need more power. Bypass the safety interrupts. Prepare the subjects.
The Inquest laboratory spiraled down along the central pit. Kudu should be at the bottom.
Pity we can't just jump down.
Unless you have wings, I wouldn't recommend it. It's a long way down in the dark.
Intruders in the lab! Keep them from the experiment!
Your free will soon be gone. Do you have any last words?
Do your worst, freak. I survived the Flame Legion. You will fare no better.
I do so love a challenge.
Monsters. What is Kudu doing here?
He's experimenting with dragon energies. I didn't know how far he had gotten.
Then let's shake a leg and take him down.
Oh, this is wrong. So wrong.
Greetings.
You there! Halt! Thank the alchemy. Kudu has gone mad. You must stop him.
What is Kudu doing here? Why are you torturing these people?
The Crucible of Eternity removes and concentrates dragon energies at the bottom of the complex. Kudu is corrupting his captives with this energy. He's turning them into dragon minions that only he can control. Go see for yourself. I'll release the door locks. Just don't hurt me.
We won't, but Kudu will pay for what he's done. He is turning our own kind into abominations. How dare he use Snaf's research like that?
Are you okay, Zoja?
I will be once I get my hands around Kudu's skinny neck.
What have you done, fools? Contain that energy leak.
Well, that didn't sound good.
I see you are still a
get out
master
of here!
of the
This
obvious.
place is gonna
Splits
blow!
may go up at any time. We should leave.
We go forward. We're going to find Kudu and stop him once and for all. Kudu, open up and face a superior intellect.
Report in. What is the Arcanic reactor status?
Oh, hello, Zoja. I see you brought friends. You realize I have a small army of golems on my side.
Do you expect your pathetic golems to deter us?
Brick-headed as always, Zoja. I expect my golems to kill you.
Kudu is nothing but a poser. There should be a golem control nexus further in. If I can reach it, I'll shut every one of these things down. Hold on. This is where they've got all their data stored.
Good. We could use a break. Logan's getting tired.
In your dreams, brother.
Can the chatter, you two. I need to concentrate. Kudu has perverted Snaf's research. He wants to make his own dragon champions.
Can you stop him, Zoja?
We could shut this place down, and I could steal all of their research and shatter their data crystals beyond repair. Sending a copy of this to the Arcane Council will kick off a firestorm for the Inquest.
Now there's a plan I can get behind.
You're lucky to have made it this far, Zoja.
Look at his face. He's been corrupted by the dragon energies.
It's an improvement.
Enlightenment always comes at a price. Now you must pay for what you've learned.
The power of the dragons invested in a creature under my control.
Kudu is dead. This won't destroy the Inquest, but it will cripple them for a while. No one uses Snaf's discoveries but me.
Zoja, we all miss your mentor, but I think it's time to let things heal. Come back to the group.
Come back? You mean work with Heir Sagalkin? Never. I can't forgive her.
I forgave Logan.
Then you're a fool, Ritlock Brimstone.
Snaf would want you to come back. We should put Destiny's Edge back together.
You lot can go fight dragons alone for all I care.
Your friends need your help. What would happen to them without you? You would deny them Snaf's wisdom?
No, of course not. I mean, I'm sure they can... That is... Heir isn't a complete fool. Very well. Fine. I will think about it. No promises.
Sounds good. If you show up, you're in. No pressure.
With Kudu finally being defeated because of what he was most obsessed with and the threats that he posed upon the road gone, Zoja finally felt a sense of relief. But of course, Kudu's goals were that of a single Surans, and his legacy did live on. Kuda, presumably Kudu's own daughter, continues to experiment and study the Elder Dragons and their magics, and all across Tyria, many more Asura would continue to study the dragons, pursue power, and try to master the eternal alchemy. With the upcoming Visions of Eternity expansion, a major theme of the story that appears to be happening is piracy, or just the existence of pirates in general. Throughout this expansion, we should expect to meet a variety of pirates, both friendly and enemies, and maybe even participate in some pirate-themed activities here and there in the new maps. But of course, throughout the entire history of the Guild Wars franchise and Tyria as a setting, pirates have been around for a long time now. So today, let's go over a lot of the general themes of piracy that we see in Guild Wars 2 and highlight some bits and pieces of their lore and stories. Pirates are a very general faction, and we see them used in-game in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different locations, for whatever story they need to be in. As such, there are a lot of different groups of pirates and notable pirates just spread throughout the world of Tyria. With the original launch of Guild Wars 2, we see pirates playing a pretty major part in various Kryta zones, especially the Gandharan Fields, Bloodtide Coast, and Lornar's Pass. They are similar in many ways to bandits, where individuals around Tyria who seek the thrill of adventure and maybe enjoy less than legal activities can join up with a group of pirates. But while bandit groups are primarily composed of humans, we see pirates made up of a wide variety of different races. For humanity, pirates are often a thorn in their side, as they often happen to be located near major human settlements. With the Queen's Jubilee part of the Festival of the Four Winds, we see the pirates being highlighted as one of the major threats for humanity, with an entire section dedicated to them, and a watch knight posing as a Laughing Go pirate by the name of Wigan the Wicked. The Laughing Go pirate being from Laughing Go Island, which is a major, potentially the single biggest pirate stronghold in Central Tyria. This location was once known as Port Noble, a Crichton stronghold that has served as a historically important location throughout Tyria and Kryta's history. With the recent events of Seitung, Seitung's forces left the port in ruin, and the pirate group known as the Covington Pirates eventually took over and established themselves on the island, renaming Port Noble to Covington Keep. The Covington Pirates are ran by one of the most infamous pirates in all of Tyria, Admiral Tida Covington, also known as the Hydra Queen. She was able to turn the Covington Pirates into one of the largest pirate groups in Central Tyria, and as a result rained chaos upon the lands and seas, as her pirates were a major threat to many people in and around Kryta. She was even able to capture the legendary magical ghost ship known as the Capricorn, but eventually had to abandon it, leaving the ship to magically sail aimlessly somewhere in the unending ocean. Adventurers and Lion Guard were able to work their way into the center of Tida Covington's stronghold and defeat her, ending her reign of terror. Though Tida is only one of many pirates, she was once a member of the Captain's Council, the ruling body of the free port of Lion's Arch, once the capital of Kryda. When Lion's Arch was destroyed from the Great Flood unleashed when Seitung rose o'er, pirates and others were able to transform the ruins of Lion's Arch into a safe haven for the people of Tyria. Swearing no allegiance to any nation, this is a central location in Tyria that people from all across Tyria can come to find safety, trade, and access a wide variety of services. The city of Lion's Arch heavily features pirate themes, and much of the city was originally constructed from the remains of various ships to build up the starts of a refuge. Over the years, Lion's Arch has changed a lot and was drastically rebuilt following the attacks of Scarlet Briar. But through it all, Lion's Arch remains as a safe haven for people and one of the most important locations in all of Tyria for trade, with the Lion Guard having a strong influence across the Lion Road, stretching from Lion's Arch to some of the far-reaching edges of Central Tyria. The original leader of the Captain's Council was the famous Counselor Cobiah Mariner. Mariner played a major part in the founding of Lion's Arch as a free port and worked to build the city up while defending it against the threat of Seitung. Captaining the Salma's Grace, Cobiah and his crew were able to sink the dead ship Harbinger as one of Zeitung's first major defeats by the hands of the people of Tyria. Cobiah's legacy can be seen across Lion's Arch, including in his grandson Commodore Lawson Mariner. The Captain's Council still plays a major part in Guild Wars 2 story here and there, with Captain Ellenkeel being one of the most prominent recent members of the Council. But while the Captain's Council and various pirates of Lion's Arch are generally considered good people and friendly to the rest of Tyria, there are still many other groups of pirates that are hostile to adventurers. They can be found in various bases under various banners with a variety of ships that players will often have to fight as they do events and explore the maps of Tyria. One of my favorite groups of pirates that you can find are the Jetsam Pirates. This is a group found in Lorna's Pass on Jetsam Isle in Foss Lake. From the surface, they are just an ordinary group of pirates led by Captain Jetsam, who live on the isle and cause a lot of issues for the people of Lorna's Pass, especially around Foss Lake, and especially for the Quaggan village of Kuluku inside of Foss Lake. One particular Quaggan by the name of Suwash wants to be a pirate and serves as the primary character during an unlikely pirate meta event. Since the Jetsam Pirates denied Suwash's request to join them, you can go ahead and fight against the Jetsam Pirates around the isle and eventually defeat Captain Jetsam. But of course, Suwash has a different approach to piracy than Jetsam, where Suwash wants the pirates on this isle to be peaceful, and if you successfully defeat Jetsam, he will mope in the corner as Captain Suwash controls the isle, and all the pirates around here are friendly to players and aren't a threat to the Quaggans of Kuluku. And I just love Suwash so much. He's just a friendly little guy who not only wants his village to be safe, but just wants to be a pirate. He doesn't want to be the kind of pirate who kills and loots people. He just wants to be a pirate that lives on ships and says "arr" and stuff. And because of that, Suwash is just one of my favorite pirates and Quaggans in Guild Wars 2. But one of the most popular pirates in the entirety of Guild Wars 2 is Captain Wayant. This is a ghostly pirate that you can find in Sharkmaw Caverns back in Lion's Arch. This is an incredibly fun jumping puzzle with so many iconic features, but as you progress through the entire puzzle, you will listen to Wayant telling stories and narrating your journey through the caverns. As you figure out each puzzle and beat every challenge, you eventually reach the ghost of Captain Wayant and can loot a treasure chest to get some rewards. Through the puzzle, you also discover the remains of Wayant's first mate, Shane, who you can then find the ghost of at the exit to the jumping puzzle, where he will sell some fun pirate-themed weapons and trade for some karma. Which, if you want to create a pirate-themed character, this is definitely a good vendor to check out and browse the wares of. And Wayant is just a really fun pirate who a lot of players have very fond memories of, as Sharkmaw Caverns is one of the most beloved jumping puzzles in Guild Wars 2. But he makes a return, or a prequel, with the Siren's Reef fractal, where you are shipwrecked on the infamous Siren's Reef, an entire area controlled by the pirates of Captain Arabella Kroll, where you have to deal with a wide variety of threats, including Saurians, ghosts, skeletons, and eventually the pirates of Arabella Kroll and Kroll herself. As you do all of the fun stuff found within this fractal, you experience Wayant's rise to being a captain, as he was a lowly cabin boy on Captain Strom's ship, but as Strom succumbed to his injuries, Wayant was given the title of captain and was able to successfully steal the ship, the Kraken's Pride, as well as the treasures of Arabella Crow, leading to his career of piracy throughout Tyria and his eventual retirement in Sharkmaw Caverns. Captain Strom is an interesting character as he is a Norn pirate who set out to search for the legendary loot of Arabella Crow, but Strom is not the only Norn pirate who set out on adventures. Captain Romka is a legendary Norn seafarer who sailed the seas with his crew, but was eventually trapped on the shores of Or. For players who play through the personal story, you interact with the ghost of Captain Romka as you search for his legendary map to aid you in your quest against the Elder Dragon Seitung. But Norn players may have some special memories of this character, as a major biography question for Norn players is that they lost a family heirloom, an heirloom by the name of Romka's Horn, meaning that a player who plays a Norn and selected this story option is the descendant of Captain Romka himself. With everything we have talked about so far, we have been heavily focused on the pirates of Central Tyria, but there is another large aspect of piracy in Tyria, and that is of the Corsairs of Elona. In both the original Guild Wars as well as Guild Wars 2, Corsairs have played a pretty important part in each of the game's stories, and the Corsairs are similar mechanically in many ways to pirates, as there are different groups of individuals interested in less than legal activities who sail the seas. But the Corsairs are thematically very different, with different designs and ships, and also have a lot of rich history themselves. The Great Corsair Wars, of which 2 have been recorded, are major events in the history of Elona, of which Corsairs gathered and formed armadas and fought each other and others. In the Second War, Sea Marshal Matoha, a war hero, defeated the Corsair leader Lady Glaive and was able to establish Istan as a major maritime power. Lady Glaive eventually fled to the Kingdom of Or and found refuge there, with the location in the Straits of Devastation known as the Chapel of Lady Glaive, which is thought to be her final resting place. But as you explore Elona and the surrounding regions, you can find a variety of Corsairs located throughout. In the original Guild Wars, one of the most prominent Corsairs was Margaret the Sly, who helped the Sunspear Spear Marshal Cormier fight back against Varish Assa and eventually defeat the god Abaddon. Her descendant, Saida the Sly, is an incredibly powerful Corsair in her own right, and is the most prominent Corsair that players interact with throughout the story of Guild Wars 2, starting in Living World Season 4. She helms the Dark Leviathan, which is originally found docked at the incredible-looking Corsair flotilla in the domain of Istan. Saida worked to fight against Palawajilko and free Elona from his grasp, eventually being successful in doing so, and later joining in on the fight against the Elder Dragon Kralkatorrik. Following the defeat of Kralkatorrik, her friendship with Connacht bloomed with Connacht's newfound wealth after winning massive bets on the commander defeating not only Balthazar, but also Kralkatorrik. The two created a massive business empire, which may or may not involve less than legal activities, and have become incredibly successful and wealthy by doing so. The two wish now have a lot of influence on Tyria and the newfound Tyrian alliance. With the upcoming Visions of Eternity expansion, players will meet up with Saida once again as the two sail aboard the Dark Leviathan to the remote island of Castora to pursue the Inquest and prevent them from using the island's ley energy for evil purposes. As such, Saida the Sly will likely play an important part in the upcoming expansion, as well as how she and her crew may fight against some of the other, less beneficial pirates who have also found their way to Castora. I spend most of my time talking about positive things in Guild Wars 2 because that is what I personally enjoy talking about. But some people like to highlight some of the negative aspects of the game, so let's kind of mix the two, where there are many mobs throughout the world of Tyria that many people will find annoying to fight. For me personally, I tend to like everything even if I sometimes get frustrated in certain circumstances. Like in any situation where you can get stunned a lot, especially if you're fighting many enemies who stun at the same time and you get stun locked by them. A mob that I used to struggle with a decent amount are the smoke scales in the Heart of Maguma, who hide within a smoke cloud, and it can sometimes be a little challenging to get them out of it. Griffins and harpies can be a little annoying as they will sometimes fly up into the air and can't be attacked. But maybe one of the most iconic annoying mobs are the White Mantle Knights, especially in Bloodstone Fen, who will snipe you out of the sky with their hammers. But turning back towards something a little more positive, there are many incredible structures found throughout Guild Wars 2. Some are definitely simple, like basic houses, but there are some that are just very, very unique. One of the most interesting is the Necropolis, found within the domain of Abbey, which is just a very grand building that has been one of my favorite buildings in Guild Wars 2 since Path of Fire released. Path of Fire in general just has so many cool buildings like the Tomb of the Abandoned in the Crystal Oasis, as well as the Palace of Avon in the Enchanted Bluffs. The Promenade of the Gods is maybe one of the most iconic locations in Guild Wars 2 since the start of the game, basically serving as the steps to the final part of vanilla Guild Wars 2. And all the way south in Cantha are some other cool structures like Xingje Monastery, which is just a beautiful landmark in the Seitung province, as well as the Jade Monument at the Kining Docks in New Kining City, which is just so cool to see. For those who like interesting locations but prefer things to be a bit spookier, there are definitely a wide variety of graveyards throughout the game. The most iconic of which maybe being the Sharkmaw Cemetery, which houses many interesting sights and secrets for players to see. Throughout Ascalon are a wide variety of graveyards that people can interact with, which makes a lot of sense in Guild Wars 2 given the stories going on in this region of the world. And maybe one of my favorites is the graveyard located in the Stronghold of Ebonhawk, which is home to the grave to Gwen Thackeray, as well as many other individuals. But perhaps you prefer finding interesting, creepy NPCs throughout the world, and there's definitely no shortage of that. Bright Shore in the Bureau Marches is a Colden who I have highlighted a couple of times on my channel before as being an interesting character connected to the very creepy story of the Bone Skinners. But in Central Tyria, you can also find the Lady Grimacy within the Toxo Bog of Brisbane Wildlands. This is an older lady who is holding a knife. You can chat with her and she will give you a stew featuring a secret ingredient that you can decide to eat against your better judgment for a hero challenge. In the number 10 spot is Mini Professor Mew. Starting this list off with an example that is super popular in the community, but just isn't one I particularly find fun. I decided to split the difference and throw it in this spot. Mini Professor Mew is a miniature that is a super common drop from the Fractals of the Mists. So common in fact that it is so incredibly cheap on the trading post. You need a total of 40 of these miniatures to combine and unlock all the different cat color miniatures, including Mini Old Tom at the end of the Old Tom collection achievement. This is pretty easy to do, especially given how cheap the Mini Professor Mew is. For anyone who plays through a lot of Fractals, you will get a ton of these. Many players decide to just list it on the trading post or straight up delete it since it is practically worthless. But many other players decide to hold onto these minis and store them in their bank to keep track of how many they have gotten over their years of playing Fractals. And some others like to buy as many as possible off of the trading post for the meme. In the number 9 spot is the Enchanted Snowball. This is a fun tonic item that you can get during Winter's Day, and it is actually decently expensive to get, especially for newer players. But a really fun aspect about this tonic is that once you get the original Enchanted Snowball, you can buy the Enchanted Colorful Snowball, which then allows you to purchase 8 additional colors individually, so you could be a classic white snowball or decide to be a red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, brown, or black snowball. And I think this is just a fun random toy item with an interesting upgrade system for it that we kind of see with a few other items in Guild Wars 2, but the tonic itself is honestly kind of fun where you can be a massive snowball and just roll around the world. It can be fun to pretend to roll over other people, and you see a bunch of players do this every now and then. I also find being able to change their color to be super fun, and many players find the yellow snowball in particular to be an enjoyable choice for them. In the number 8 spot are a few very similar items, and it is the Mystery and Chest Tonics. These are some items that you can unlock in a few different ways. The Mystery Tonics will allow you to randomly transform into a random thing depending on which tonic you pick. One is a Beast Tonic where you will transform into a random animal. One is a Forest Tonic where you will transform into a random tree, and one is a Furniture Tonic which will transform you into a random piece of furniture. The Beast Tonic is fun, but the other two in particular are super fun to use in random areas of the world, like how you could just randomly become a tree in the middle of Lion's Arch. You can even type /dance to make the tree shake. Then there are the different chest tonics that you can unlock which transforms you into a chest, similar to the ones you would see from champions or at the end of jumping puzzles and whatnot. In many ways, this is like transforming yourself into a mimic in Guild Wars 2 because you can pretend to be a chest and then suddenly move around and spook players who aren't familiar with what this tonic is. In the number 7 spot is the Endless Mystery Bearkin Tonic. This may be an entry that is here because of recency bias, but I have been really enjoying this tonic. You unlock this by completing a total of 50 Mount Balrior convergences in the Jather Wilds expansion. If you decide to do one convergence a day for the daily reward, it will take you a total of 50 days to eventually unlock this tonic, but honestly getting through 50 convergences isn't too bad, especially since I enjoy that piece of content. This is a combat tonic that is similar to many other combat tonics in the game, including the classic Endless Coden tonic, but this one in particular has a good variety of transformation options that you can randomly get when you use it, and these transformations resemble the Lowland Coden that you have met around Janthir Wilds. Typically, I'm not a big fan of combat tonics due to how they limit your gameplay nowadays, like when you can't mount, but I still like to use them every now and then, and this is a combat tonic that I have just suddenly really enjoyed. In the number 6 spot is the Endless Choya Pinata tonic. This is an item that I genuinely really enjoyed unlocking. In the Crystal Oasis map from Path of Fire, you have the free city of Amnoon, which features the Casino Blitz meta event. I really love the city, I really love the Amnoon Casino, and I really love this meta event where you run around the city collecting casino coins before eventually fighting a giant Choya Pinata. But as you collect casino coins, you can use them to acquire a wide variety of different rewards from the Casino Blitz reward cashier, and the biggest reward of them all is this tonic, and it just has everything. It is a super fun tonic aesthetically and just looks so fun. You basically transform into a smaller version of the giant Choya Pinata, but you can also use this tonic for costume brawl, and it is a pretty powerful option with the rollout ability being super effective for that. On top of all of that, the rollout ability is also a decently useful mobility option for players in certain situations where you can move around locations super quickly by using it. In the North America server, there are a community of Choya people who like to use this tonic and other Choya stuff who you can find around the world and at meta events and whatnot, which just makes this item a little more fun. Just all in all, this is a super fun item to collect that is super fun to use. In the number 5 spot are the Super Adventure Box boomboxes. This may or may not be a bit more controversial compared to some other spots, but these boomboxes are just so fun. These are novelties that you can unlock, which will allow you to play different Super Adventure Box tracks, depending on which box you get, outside of the Super Adventure Box and for players around you to listen to. Some people really don't like Super Adventure Box and don't like hearing the music, but I like it and it is fun to run into players playing them every now and then, or to sit back and listen to it myself while in game. You can unlock the World 1 and World 2 Super Boomboxes at the generic Super Adventure Box traders for Bauble Bubbles, which you mostly earn while playing inside of the Super Adventure Box. These 2 boomboxes will play a selection of tracks from their respective worlds, but you can also unlock Dusk's World 1 and 2 Super Boomboxes from the traders for Bauble Bubbles, but you can only unlock them after completing the entire world in Tribulation mode for the respective boombox you want to get. And the music from these boomboxes are heavy metal versions of select songs from the Super Adventure Box, which were originally by a fan and were brought into the game. In the number 4 spot is the Endless Mystery Quaggan tonic. This is an item that I have a lot of nostalgia for because it is one of the first tonics I ever unlocked in Guild Wars 2. You can find the item specifically from a few different sources from Living World Season 1, or you can buy it directly off of the trading post. Alternatively, you can craft it with a bunch of endless black, blue, green, and pink Quaggan tonics that you can also get from some Season 1 sources or the trading post. The Endless Mystery Quaggan tonic is a combination of those 4 aforementioned Quaggan tonics, where you can use it to be randomly transformed into one of those 4, but there's also an additional bonus unique transformation locked behind this tonic, where you can transform into Cuckoochu the Incredulous, who is just an incredible little Quaggan, also originally from Living World Season 1. Each of these forms have some costume brawl abilities, with Cuckoochu having a very fitting bonus Breathe Fire ability, and all in all, I just love this tonic a lot. In the number 3 spot are the Endless Embiggening and Miniature tonics. These are 2 similar tonics that work in opposite ways found during Living World Season 3. The Endless Miniature tonic can be found in Lake Doric and will make your character significantly smaller. This is fun on all characters, but is especially fun on an Ossan character because it makes you so incredibly tiny. The Endless Embiggening tonic can be found in Draconic Mons and will make your character significantly larger. This is kind of fun on an Ossan, where you can be a big Ossan like when you are in Super Adventure Box, but it is particularly fun when playing a larger Norn character because you can become even bigger. These are 2 tonics that are pretty easy to get as long as you have the required episodes from Living World Season 3. I highly recommend unlocking these items as an activity for newer players since they are easy to get and because they can give you a taste of what it's like to unlock some items in Guild Wars 2. Plus, they are super fun tonics to use that can actually be useful in certain situations. I'm not sure about the Embiggening tonic, but in North America, I know there's a group of players very similar to the Choya guild I mentioned earlier, which likes to play as small Ossan and use the miniature tonics together which I think makes this item a little bit more fun as well. In the number 2 spot are spoons. Yes, spoons, an absolute classic of a collectible item. The Kutali File collection, an invented word meaning lover of spoons, is an iconic collection that players can complete for a mastery point, some achievement points, and a few bits of supplies. You can start this collection by purchasing the collectible spoon box from legendary collector Youngblood. You then have to go around the world and collect a bunch of different spoons that you can find around the game, most of which are from tasks. 1 wish can be bought with laurels or guild commendations, and 3 wish are drops. The entire collection is pretty fun, but the 3 drops in particular are iconic. The Siege Commander Spoon is a random drop from enemy NPCs on Road vs. Road maps. The Fractal Spoon drops from chests and random enemies inside of the Fractals in the Mists. Then the most iconic spoon of them all is the Carved Bone Spoon, which drops from the Dragon chest after killing the Torquato the Sunless World boss. This item is so popular in the Guild Wars 2 community that many people, more so back in the day, would say things along the lines of "enjoy your spoon" in map chat upon defeating Torquato. Generally, after you unlock these 3 items for the first time, you will start getting the broken spoon instead from any of these sources, which is another fun item, but I think it bugs sometimes, and you will get the original spoon again, which is always a fun surprise. But now for the number 1 spot for my favorite fun collectible in all of Guild Wars 2, and it just has to go to the Marsh Frogs. This may be no surprise for some players. Marsh Frogs are one of the most popular items you can collect in all of Guild Wars 2, and are also my personal favorite frog in the entire game. In Bloodtide Coast, in the Ark and Foreland area, you have this task around here where you can help the Lion Guard. You can find Marsh Frogs all around here and just pick them up, throwing them in your inventory, and bring them to a few different spots around the task area where you can use them to progress the task in a couple of different ways. But the most important thing that I just said is that you throw the frogs into your inventory, where they will stay in your inventory forever unless you use them for the task or delete them. So you can save onto these frogs forever. And best of all, they stack in stacks of 250, so you can collect a lot of Marsh Frogs. This is a generally popular thing that some players in the Guild Wars 2 community, myself included, like to do just to mess around for a bit, where you can sit back, relax, and run around this entire area collecting frogs. This is even popular enough that you can track the statistic for how many frogs you have collected, including a community-wide leaderboard for who has the most Marsh Frogs on the GW2 Efficiency website. Something I talked about in my recent Q&A video is my retirement plan for Guild Wars 2. For when Guild Wars 2 is done being developed in the future and no new content is added to the game, I want to take each of my random aughts outside of my main characters, do everything in the game, and complete all of the stories, maps, and whatnot. Once I am done with that character and plan to retire them, I will liquidate and transfer a lot of their items and clear up my inventory space, then fill their bags most of the way full with Marsh Frogs, just so that my account can have a ton of Marsh Frogs on it. In the number 10 spot is an interesting one, and it is the Of Mists and Monsters meta. I put this one in the spot because the break bar during this fight is one aspect of an overarching phase that I really enjoy. Of Mists and Monsters is the meta event in the Janthir Century map that most players who have played through the recent expansion should be familiar with. This is where you fight Greer and Decima out in the open world with 2 groups on completely opposite sides of the map. At 75% and 25%, you enter the Warclaw phase for whichever boss you are currently fighting. The Titan will become immune to all damage, or in the case of Greer, a bunch of adds will also spawn that your group needs to defeat, which is very fitting for this boss. Afterwards, the break bar appears. Now this is a relatively simple break bar that you need to use crowd control abilities in order to chip away at. With the Janthir Wilds, a big focus has been put onto the Warclaw, where you can use your Warclaw to chip away at a boss's break bar. But after your team successfully depletes the Titan's Defiance, you then enter the next part of this phase where you have to use the Chain Pull ability on your Warclaw against the Titan and then run in laps around it, similar to what you do for a moment in the story against Decima, essentially trapping the Titan in place. Thematically, what depleting a break bar does mechanically. And I just really enjoyed this phase of the fight because it's a really fun concept for Guild Wars 2. In the number 9 spot is Blighted Heir Stagakin. This is a boss from the Hearts and Minds story mission from Heart of Thorns, where you defeat the Elder Dragon Mordramoth. This version of Heir is a mental corruption which Mordramoth creates in order to try and beat Bram down in this fight and ultimately defeat your group. If you play through the mission, you know how this goes, where Bram is able to overcome this challenge and you eventually do defeat Mordramoth. But an important aspect of this fight is the break bar. The flow of the fight has you starting with fighting Blighted Garm and eventually killing him. Upon doing so, Heir will run over to Garm and attempt to resurrect her wolf, and this is where you get the opportunity to attempt to stun air. Her break bar is relatively easy to get through, and you want to make sure you deplete the break bar in order to get a whopping 15 seconds of stun against air. This is one of the longest stuns in the entire game, and it feels super rewarding to get. And it is pretty important to get because this is vital to do in order to easily defeat the boss. In the number 8 spot is the Wyvern Matriarch. This is a simple boss fight during the night meta in Verdant Brink that is super popular for players to fight to get an amalgamated gemstone every day. Defeating this boss is also an important part of getting the maximum amount of rewards during the night meta in Verdant Brink should your group be doing that. The break bar during this fight is super cool thematically because the Matriarch, Wyvern, will attempt to fly away, but having your group deplete her defiance will force her to land where you can then continue attacking her. Should you fail, she will fly away for a bit and attack you without being able to attack her back. This fight has a special place in my heart from a nostalgia point of view because when I think of break bars, I tend to think of this boss first because of how this is one of the first big examples of a break bar that many players back in 2015 experienced with the introduction of break bars in the Heart of Thorns expansion, myself included. In the number 7 spot is Veil Guardian. There are a lot of raid bosses in Guild Wars 2 with fun or interesting break bars, shout out to Gorseval the Multifarious, but Veil Guardian is just my favorite. I think a big part of it has to do with how Veil Guardian is, both from a release standpoint and from a general player's experience, the first raid boss that most players fight in Guild Wars 2, so learning the mechanics of this fight and how to deal with this break bar is nostalgic. But the break bar itself is honestly pretty cool as well. One of the boss's main abilities is Magic Storm, where Veil Guardian will raise its hands up in the air and spew a ton of deadly magic to your team. This attack can be pretty devastating to a newer group and should be dealt with quickly by depleting the boss's break bar. This break bar is interesting because depleting the boss's defiance will simply stop the attack and not lead to a stun phase, but stopping the attack is probably even better than stunning the boss. Another interesting part of this break bar is how it interacts with the Seeker's mechanic. These little red orbs pose a ton of damage to anyone close to them. They will constantly move towards a player, and they basically can't be killed, but they can be moved by crowd control effects. So you typically want to push or pull them away from the group. However, during the Magic Storm attack, your group needs to be careful to not pull the Seekers onto the boss when you are attempting to deplete the break bar, otherwise you're just going to deal a lot of damage to your team. When you start having to move the boss around the arena in the final phase, you also have to make sure you deplete the boss's defiance quickly enough in order to quickly move the boss to a new pie section to prevent the green circles from appearing in an area of the arena that is currently hostile. In the number 6 spot is the Mouth of Mordremoth. This is the final boss of the Dragonstand meta that is an iconic part of the Heart of Thorns expansion. You and a ton of other players fight across the entire map through 3 different lanes before eventually converging to defeat the Mouth of Mordremoth. But an integral part of this fight is the boss's break bar. There are a lot of phases to this fight, but the biggest phase is where you have a bunch of players pick up mortars to throw at the Mouth of Mordremoth while other players stun the boss. The mouth will bite the island it is focused on 3 times, and you need to stun the boss by depleting its defiance a total of 3 times in order to get a massive stun on the boss, allowing the group to deal a lot of damage. But as you stun, you can still deal damage to this boss, so an incredibly important part of this fight, which was more important during Heart of Thorns and is less so now, because the power creep is being slow to CC this boss. If you draw out the bite phase by carefully controlling your CCs, you can both deal more damage to the boss, while also giving more time for players to run mortars to the boss to deal massive damage. And way back in the day, doing this could sometimes be the difference between failing or completing the meta. In the number 5 spot is the Bog Queen, another newer boss found in Lowland Shore. The Bog Queen is a fan favorite boss at the end of a large event chain on the western side of the map. This entire fight is really cool with a bunch of fun mechanics, an incredibly interesting story, and amazing voice acting. Every 25% the Bog Queen will rise up into the air and summon a bunch of maggots in a nearby area. You and those with you have to get onto your Warclaw and use your Warclaw to squash all the maggots before returning to the Bog Queen. She will be up in the air, and you will all then have to use your chain pull ability in order to break her break bar and drag her down from the sky, removing her rot shield, and allowing your group to continue to attack her. It's just a really cool mechanic for a super interesting boss fight. In the number 4 spot is the Chalk Garant. This is another interesting break bar that is similar to the Mouth of Mordremoth, where it was more prominent back during the Heart of Thorns days, but is less so nowadays because of power creep, and was also sometimes the difference between the meta being successful or failing. Also, similar to the Wyvern Matriarch, this is a break bar that I often think about first when I think about break bars. Nowadays, you can often just deplete the break bar super quickly and DPS the boss down, but during Heart of Thorns, it was a fair bit more complicated, because this was one of the few break bars in the game you want to completely ignore. When you break it, you get to DPS the boss a short time, and then the boss will start running around the area, making it significantly more difficult to DPS the boss down. So actually, it was a DPS loss to break the break bar, because the few seconds of vulnerability did not make up for players having to run around all over the place. In the number 3 spot are the break bar tutorial NPCs. I'm specifically thinking about the Defiance training mech at the training grounds in Seitung province, as well as Defiance Trainer, Cascading Sands, and Harvest Den. One of the biggest complaints about Guild Wars 2 was that break bars weren't really introduced to players, but these two trainers provide an opportunity for new players to have break bars explained to them. I actually like these entire areas where you can learn some of the more basic elements of Guild Wars 2 and how they are present in the starting areas of expansions, so players who specifically skip to the current expansion can have the opportunity to learn some of those basics. And the number 2 spot is Lextalion the Merciless. This is the biggest boss from the newest meta, A Titanic Voyage, in the new Balvanisos map. Lextalion is a super cool enemy who thematically is the same thing as Gorseval, but in a different area of the world, and is mechanically very similar. This boss fight is decently challenging, though not too bad once players began to figure out this fight. The break bar happens every 25%, and it is incredibly important for players to break it, because if they don't, Lextalion will blow up the entire group, instantly killing all of them. This is just super cool and makes a boss feel significantly more intimidating compared to other bosses. Plus, a mechanic in the open world that can wipe an entire group is fun to see, though some may not like it because ultimately it doesn't matter too much for completing the boss, but is important for being able to get an achievement in the fight. This break bar is also interesting because it is connected to another mechanic in the fight, where when spirits spawn after Lextalion traps players, the team needs to kill the spirits as soon as possible. For each spirit that is alive when Lextalion begins to blow up the group, the break bar will be harder to get through. So if too many spirits are alive, or if players just don't have enough CC, the players will blow up. But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite break bar in all of Guild Wars 2, and it just has to go to Barbed Veil. This is a super fun NPC from the Gen 3 Wilds expansion who plays an important role in multiple parts of the expansion, but the important part is how she is the final boss of the Sleuth Brawl Fields event chain and Harvest Den back in the training grounds area. I love this entire event chain, but Barbed Veil is definitely the coolest fight here, and I love all of the different mechanics. But the break bar mechanic in this fight is just absolutely incredible. Every 25%, Barbed Veil will grab a random player around her and place them in a chokehold. The Defiance bar will appear, and players will have to break the bar in order to save the player. If they fail, Barbed Veil will pick the player up into the air and slam them down into the ground, bashing their skull into the floor of the arena while screaming "Welcome to Harvest Den," instantly killing the player. And this is just so insane, especially for a casual Coden training players at a cozy little village in what is largely a chill expansion. Reflecting on this list, Heart of Thorns is a massive expansion with a bunch of break bars that I like a lot, and that makes sense given the fact that this is where break bars were a new mechanic. But the most recent expansion of Gen 3 Wilds has also introduced a variety of super fun break bars that I just love a lot, and Barbed Veil is the perfect example of a fun break bar. In the number 10 spot are the Sand Jackal Run stairs. Sand Jackal Run is the area in the southwestern corner of the Desolation that many players will remember because it is the spot you come to during Path of Fire in order to unlock your Jackal mount, where this is basically a massive Djinn fortress that is hovering in the sky above the sulfurous wastes in this area, where the terrain surrounding this location as well as the structure itself is super cool and is one of the best set pieces for the Path of Fire expansion. While there are a variety of sand portals around here that you can use with your Jackal to get up to the fortress, new players coming here for the first time and anyone else who wants to take a slower way up to the fortress can use the stairs, where some people may consider this a ramp, but they definitely visually look like stairs, where you have this massive spiral staircase that looks just like the rest of the fortress with incredible designs all over them. You have massive steps with magical sand flowing down the staircase that you can run on, where the fortress, also known as the Djinn Enclave, is pretty high up in the sky, so it does take a bit of time to run all the way up these stairs. But once you get up here, you have a fun area to explore and some beautiful sights to take in. In the number 9 spot are Caelif's Steps. This area is located in northwestern Ember Bay, and a lot of people come through here in order to enter the Chalice of Tears jumping puzzle. where this is an old and relatively abandoned Mersata ruin that still has a bunch of jade constructs walking around here. You have the side of this volcano with a massive stream of lava flowing down it, with these old staircases going all the way up towards the top. Decorating this entire area, you have some of the iconic skulls that make Ember Bay the map it is. You got a ton of spikes sticking out of the ground, and all the various Mersat defenses. When we look at the stairs themselves, they are really cool looking. I always love old stone stairs that are partially ruined but still very much usable, where these stairs have a fantastic aesthetic, but when you take that aesthetic and having them go up a volcano on either side of a lava flow, it just makes this entire area feel incredible. In the number 8 spot are the Necropolis stairs. Returning back to Path of Fire, we have the Domain of Abu map just southeast of the Desolation, where there are a lot of cool stairs in this map, but I particularly like the ones located at the Necropolis, where again, there are a ton of stairs in this specific area that are really cool, but I absolutely love the stairs you find at the main entrance. You have this garden area with a bunch of beautiful flowers and trees around here with pockets of water. You have a central bridge with a couple of braziers that leads to a fountain that has a statue of the glorious leader Palawajoko in it. Then you have these beautiful red stairs that form an hourglass shape, where they start on either side of the statue, meet in the middle before going back out again, surrounding the embalming building and leading towards the Court of the Dead. I love the design of these stairs and the intricate details on them, but when you step back for a moment and look at this area as a whole, it is just incredibly beautiful. In the number 7 spot are the stairs found at the Crown Pavilion. Across the world in Divinity's Reach, we have the Crown Pavilion, and I think these are some of the most iconic stairs in the entire game. You have the major road that loops around the entirety of Divinity's Reach in a massive circle, where as you approach the Crown Pavilion, the road dips down into the ground a little bit, and as you reach the bottom, you can turn and see the Crown Pavilion itself, where you then have another staircase that takes you down to the main floor surrounding this massive pit, where these stairs are pretty cool looking stairs that are cracked in a few places, which I think is a nice touch, but largely they are just classic stone steps that fit into Divinity's Reach incredibly well. But of course, these stairs are some of the most traversed stairs in the entire game because of all the festivals that take place here, where you can enter the Crown Pavilion itself during the Festival of the Four Winds, and some people run down these stairs to do that. But you also have Lunar New Year, which is coming up soon, as well as Winter's Day, which just happened, which both take place surrounding the Crown Pavilion. So a ton of people every year will waypoint here and run down these stairs to take part in the festivities. In the number 6 spot are the Wizard's Tower stairs. The Wizard's Tower was one of the most hyped locations to visit in all of Guild Wars 2, and it is pretty incredible to explore. But one major detail about this place are all of the stairs. This is basically the stair capital of Tyria. Since it is a relatively small area, it is exceptionally tall given the fact that it is a tower, where most players just use their sky scale in order to navigate this place, but if you took some time to run on foot, you will be spending a lot of time going upstairs. When we look at the design of the stairs themselves, we see some variation across the tower, but they are all relatively the same, where we have pristine, angelic-like gold and white stairs with intricately carved handrails, where it fits in with the aesthetic of the Wizard's Tower, and I love how they all look slotted into the tower itself, where this entire area is absolutely gorgeous, and I love seeing the massive amount of staircases spread throughout this entire area. In the number 5 spot are the Great Lodge stairs. Heading over to Hobrak, we have the biggest lodge in the entire city, which is the Great Lodge. There's a lot of stuff going on in here, like how we can find Newt Whitebear as well as the Fango Jormag, where you just have these massive steps that allow you to travel from different parts of the lodge to the others, where you have the main entrance to this place that has massive ramps, but also some stairs breaking up some parts of the ramp. Then you have a small set of stairs as you enter, then massive stairs that take you down to the central part of the lodge, with more stairs that take you up to other parts, where a very particular vibe is hit here, where you have this absolutely massive wooden lodge with giant doors that you can enter through, with massive stairs that are super wide that go up and down in certain areas. It's just incredible looking and truly feels like a grand design of an incredibly large building, where I will give a tiny little shout out to these tiny little stairs that go from the entrance to the lodge up to the Hunter's Hearth home instance. In the number 4 spot are the stairs and Vex's lab. I have to add this area to the list because it's just so fun. Vex's lab is an incredible mini dungeon found in Fireheart Rise. There are a variety of rooms in here with various puzzles and challenges to overcome, but one of the most popular rooms has to be the Escher room, where you have a bunch of portals that take you to other portals with these crazy walls and phenomenal stairs. Where the stairs themselves are Isuran in design, where you have what basically looks like a bunch of smaller platforms stacked on top of one another, where each individual section looks fantastic and altogether they blend together decently well, But the crazy fun part of these stairs is how you got some that are normal, some that are angled, some that are sideways, some that are upside down, and just altogether are super crazy looking, which is exactly what this room is supposed to look like, where this is an incredibly memorable spot in Guild Wars 2 for me, mostly because of how incredible these stairs are. In the number 3 spot are the basic human inn stairs. Throughout most of this list, we have been looking at incredible stair designs that are incredibly intricate or crazy in some way, but to look at something more basic, we can find wooden stairs across all the different human inns in the game, and I wanted to lump them together. To look at a variety of different inns, we can often see some small stone steps that lead from the road going into the front of the inn and into the inn proper, where when we go inside, you can often find some classic looking wooden staircases that take you from one floor to another. I like this design because you can see through the staircase and see all the tables and stuff on the other side, which is a great vibe. But you also have some more sturdy stairs that you can find in other inns, which look incredible as well. I love the stone stairs surrounding this fireplace that just allow some steps up to a slightly more elevated area with some fancy chairs surrounding the fireplace. I love the look of the stairs of the inn in the Ossan quarter, especially the spiral staircase with the blue on it once you are inside. I love the steps that completely encircle the downstairs of these types of inns, especially when they step up to the various tables set around here. I love the stairs you can find in this type of inn and how they basically break up this massive room into separate areas, and you also got these smaller stone stairs that take you up to one of the closed off rooms here. I just love the taverns and inns of Tarir, and the stairs in here are an incredible part of them. In the number 2 spot are the Shrouded Ruins in Verdant Brink. Heading over to the Heart of Thorns expansion, we have the Shrouded Ruins in the southern Verdant Brink, where this is just an incredible area that I have a lot of nostalgia for when I explored this area when Heart of Thorns originally released, and I still love coming back through here, where you have these massive, mossy, overgrown ruins that are built into the cliffside, where you then have all of these stairs leading up to the side of the ruins that take you from the ground to the upper parts of the entire structure, where I also like all the stairs around the inner area. But a big part of these stairs are how they play an integral role in the events going on around here, where you have the Pale Reaver Rally outpost with the entire event chain that starts over there and brings you to these ruins, where one of the events has you climbing up these stairs, fortifying the bulwark at the top of them, and using sniper rifles to shoot all the different Mordrim charging towards you, where they start on the ground all around here and will go to the stairs and make their way up them themselves, where you have players holding the top of the stairs, picking off any of the Mordrim that the snipers aren't able to get. And I just absolutely love the vibes of this event and how you hold this staircase against an army of enemy Mordrim, plus they look pretty cool as well. But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite stairs in all of Guild Wars 2, and it just has to go to the stairs in the Sanctum. This is an area located in the Realm of Torment, which now belongs to the goddess Cormyr after Abaddon was defeated, and Cormyr took his power and realm, where we can assume that many of the dark and dangerous locations around here were transformed into angelic and beautiful areas similar to the Sanctum, which the Sanctum was crafted by Cormyr as a massive library which contains the entirety of all knowledge, where there are definitely a ton of books all around here, and the library itself looks incredible. But a prominent feature of this library are all the different spiral staircases that climb up high into the Sanctum, where you have multiple spiral staircases that are just incredibly designed and very, very cool looking. Where I like how some of them are intertwined with each other, where this is just an incredible set piece that was incredible to explore during the story, and it is fun to come back through here after completing Open Skies Sunspear Sanctuary, where you also have a variety of other stairs like the ones on these beautiful bridges, as well as the one that takes you up to the central pedestal area, where altogether this is just an incredible environment with my favorite stairs in all of Guild Wars 2. In the number 10 spot is the Festive Umbrella. This is a very interesting umbrella because it is a guild hall decoration from Lunar New Year, where if you are a scribe, you can make these with some red lanterns and a few other ingredients to get a simple red umbrella that you can place in your guild hall, where you can combine 2 of these with some additional materials in order to make a red festival tint, which is basically 2 of these umbrellas sewn together. Where I always love guild hall decorations because decorating is just a fun activity whenever I get in the mood for it. Which, if I were to make a guess, as Lunar New Year rolls around very soon next year, we will see Def Lahar hanging out in Divinity's Reach and selling a recipe for us to make this in our homestead, which will make this umbrella even cooler. And with this being a decoration from Lunar New Year, you can indeed find it in Divinity's Reach around the Crown Pavilion whenever the festival rolls around, which I think is fun to see this area decorated in a couple of different ways throughout the year, depending on which festival is going on, where it makes sense to bring in various umbrellas and tents to set up in the festival area for vendors and attendees of said festival. In the number 9 spot is the Disguised Umbrella Sword. Now I don't own this on my account, so enjoy this promo footage and preview footage, for this is a gem store exclusive item which some people might not like since you have to spend 800 gems in order to get, but I'll allow it for this video. The gold equivalent at the time of writing this video is around 390 gold, for this is just an interesting model of a sword skin. When it is stowed, it is sheathed like an umbrella, and this is honestly a really cool looking umbrella with the black and gold design alongside red gemstones. But of course, it is an illusion, because when you wield it, you grab the handle of the umbrella and pull a blade out that you can use in combat, which hidden weapon designs are always fun, and I definitely like how this one looks. I think the sword itself looks cool, but of course the umbrella looks incredible, and I would love to have seen something like a focus or a shield that uses the umbrella model, but is hidden away when you have the weapon stowed, so you can combine the two together to make it look like you are using the sword as the sword, and then the umbrella as an offhand weapon. In the number 8 spot is the Vacation Lounge Chair. Now this is another gem store item that costs 600 gold, and I want to give a quick shout out that I actually bought this item as I was writing this video, and I did so because the Winter's Day patch this year implemented a change where certain gem store categories, including chairs, are permanently available now, which I actually really appreciate a lot since I don't like the thoughts of FOMO even if the items will be rotating around again. So I have this chair and enjoy it in random locations around Tarir. While it's a pretty fun chair, you are lounging in a beach chair, wiping your brow every now and then with a table by your side that has some drinks on it, and of course covering you is a big umbrella. For this is a very classic looking umbrella that has some light blue and darker blue fabric, and as someone whose favorite color is blue, I naturally like this umbrella a lot, and I personally think it has a cool design, where I think everything combined with this chair just makes it fun to pop down on a beach somewhere and just relax for a bit. In the number 7 spot is the Crow's Nest Tavern umbrella. This is approaching canopy territory as we have a giant umbrella providing shade to the area of the northern parapet of this entire area, where this location is where the Lion's Arch Captain's Council convenes to do Captain Council things, where you have this massive stage that some people may recognize from the annual fashion show, plus a bunch of other decorations around here. Around this parapet you have a variety of tables, cushions, chairs, and a couple of captains hanging out, and then the umbrella, where you have a very cool aquatic design of the umbrella itself, with blue fabrics and waves embroidered into it. You have the central mast which is holding up the umbrella or canopy with some additional supports. Then you have an incredible looking octopus chandelier holding 8 burning candles. And let me just say, this is so cool looking, but all the details together makes a really cool tent that fits this area thematically well, with it being the area where a bunch of important pirates meet in a naval city. In the number 6 spot are the Divinity's Reach Circus umbrellas. Now this is a very general answer, and there are some similarities between this spot on this list and when I talked about the Divinity's Reach circus tents in my top 10 tents video, where all around Divinity's Reach there are quite a few structures belonging to the circus, and we can see many cool decorations with them. Where here and there we can see some umbrellas. Most notably for me is at Mina's target shooting, where we can see a few umbrellas sticking up out of the corner of the tent itself, which adds a lot of depth and detail to the overall tent structure. But you can look at a few other areas and decide for yourself what type of shaped fabric this can be called, where you have this cotton candy cart that has a bit of an umbrella on top, and you have some umbrellas next to this baker over these tables, which may or may not be a part of the circus, but are in the same area. In the number 5 spot are the Divinity's Reach book carts. This is a fun spot because these carts are what inspired me to make this list, where I just love these carts for so many reasons. Having little carts around the city where vendors are selling books with all of these people walking around is fantastic. It just makes the city feel alive, but you can interact with each of the book carts to get a unique bit of dialogue. To highlight one, you can see this cart has a book titled Ghosts of Ascalon, written by Dougal Keane, which is a reference to the real-world Guild Wars novel Ghosts of Ascalon, where Dougal Keane is one of the main characters. But when we look at the carts themselves, they are really fun structures with 4 big wheels and an umbrella on top of them, where you have these V-shaped covers which can be debated to be like umbrellas, but then you got some red and white umbrellas, which tend to be the most popular type of umbrella in the game, covering some of the other book carts. Where I just like running through Divinity's Reach and seeing these little carts with umbrellas off to the side, and it is fun to stop and read what each of them has to offer. In the number 4 spot are the Kestrel Market umbrellas. The Kestrel Market is located on the eastern edge of the stronghold of Ebonhawk, and if you're like me, no, it has nothing to do with the Kestrels from the End of Dragons expansion. But this entire area is cool as a part of Ebonhawk, where a bunch of different civilians are hanging out at doing various things. You can also find a few separatists here and there, and some of the sections of the Founding Book. There are a few different merchants, some book carts similar to the ones in Divinity's Reach, and just a bunch of fun decorations that makes this a cool looking market. But near the waypoint here, you have these two umbrellas. Sitting side by side, we have some red and white umbrellas with some red, white, and blue pennants attached to the bottom, where they are two different sizes, with one being much larger than the other. Around them are some market stalls and some supplies, but interestingly enough, there aren't any vendors underneath these two umbrellas compared to many of the other covers around here. But still, I think they look particularly cool compared to many of the umbrellas in the game, and I'm glad they were added to this area of the world. In the number 3 spot are the new Kining City umbrellas. Specifically, when I think of these, I'm thinking of the ones at the Nika's Blade restaurant, located just east of the Ludgardus Plaza waypoint that you come to during the Fallout story step of Ender Dragons, where you have some tables with chairs and food on the tables and other supplies all around here, where you sit at the table underneath the umbrella during the story mission, which is fun. But these umbrellas are just super cool looking and pretty unique compared to every other umbrella in Guild Wars 2, where they fit into the vibes and aesthetics in New Kining City as a whole, where they are kind of jade punk and futuristic looking, with light beaming down from the center of the umbrella towards the brim. And I think when we look at all the umbrellas found throughout Guild Wars 2, it is obvious that these ones would make the list and be super high up on it, because they're just so unique and cool looking. In the number 2 spot are the South Sun Palm Tree umbrellas. These are fantastic. At the starting area of South Sun Cove, you can find this incredible bar area on the southern end of Pearl Islet. You have a lot of fun stuff around here, including a changing room, a bar, a bunch of patrons, and a bunch of fun tables with umbrellas, where we actually have 2 different types of umbrellas here, and they both just serve to provide some shade for the table where people are eating and drinking at. In the upper part of this bar area, you can find some of those classic red and white umbrellas with the pennants, but they have an additional fun detail with having some palm leaves covering them, where I think this is a really fun detail that adds a lot to these umbrellas. But if you like them, you can go down to the beach and find these umbrellas that are entirely made up of palm leaves. It's like a mini palm tree with a table that has cool little fish statues for legs. And I just love the look of this so much, and I think it's a fantastic idea for a beachside resort. But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite umbrella in all of Guild Wars 2, and it just has to go to the Picnicking Villagers umbrella. This is a phenomenal little area that you can find in Queensdale, and I have highlighted it a couple of times on my channel before, and for good reason, because it's just a tiny detail that adds a fantastic, memorable interaction in this map. Near Jeb's Wheatfield with a cool windmill you can explore the inside of, you can find this incredible looking apple tree on top of the hill, which the environment here itself is super cool, with all of Shaymore around it, Divinity's Reach off in the distance, and then this apple tree on the edge of a sheer cliff. But you have this villager here who has this umbrella and is using it to have a little picnic, where there are some fallen apples on the ground, a whole pie, a basket of flowers, and a basket of bread. Which, can I just say, this is just something that is so nice. Sitting underneath an apple tree, looking at an incredible sight and eating a bunch of carbs. Except this poor villager has her day ruined because a bear will periodically come and try to take the bread and pie for itself by charging towards the villager, scaring her away, and hanging out underneath the umbrella, where you can deal with the bear and the villager will continue on with her picnic. And this entire interaction is just so much fun because it's ultimately a little thing that is random, but it's stuff like this that makes me fall in love with video games, where the umbrella here is definitely cool and is the iconic umbrella model we have seen in a few different places throughout this list. But how this umbrella is being used for a picnic alongside the entire story going on here just makes it my favorite umbrella in all of Guild Wars 2. In the number 10 spot is the Pernicious Viper. This is a worm, but maybe more accurately a snake, that you can find during the human personal story for anyone who picked that their greatest regret is not joining the carnival, where you can find this little creature, also known as Wrigley, during the Floating Griswold story mission where you are investigating the circus, and the fabulous Chakravarti brings this out, where during the performance it goes rogue and the player character has to defeat it in order to save the crowd. Now this is pretty low on this list because I think, while this is a worm, it's supposed to be a snake, but Guild Wars 2 doesn't have too many snakes, so they went with a worm model instead. But I still find this to be a very cool worm that plays a pretty interesting part in the story here, and this is always a memorable worm for me since my first character, who I no longer have, was a human engineer who played through these missions. In the number 9 spot are the Janundu. These are a common variety of worms found throughout the Desolation that are basically a complete subgroup of worms in and of themselves, where they are very unique, red-looking worms who possess the unique ability to traverse the sulfurous wastes of the Desolation without being harmed, Going all the way back to the original Guild Wars, we see these worms be an incredibly important part of the game, as they allow you to travel across the Desolation by swallowing you whole, and you can command them to move around, where this is a fun and unique method of transportation that I think adds a lot of flavor to that game. But moving back towards Guild Wars 2, we don't necessarily see them used for that too often, as the new preferred method of transportation across the sulphurous wastes are the skimmers. But that doesn't mean we don't see a ton of Genundu in the Desolation, as well as a few other maps and story instances as well, where they are a common component of Palawajoko's armies and are in fact one of the most common pieces of his military, and then the Free Awakened military following the defeat of Palawajoko, where they are cool to see in combat and occasionally serve as a cool set piece in the story. In the number 8 spot is the Great Jungle Worm. This is a very cool world boss that you can find in Caledon Forest right outside of the Twilight Arbor, where the area all around here is super cool with the swamp and all these mysterious heads, but you have a large event chain around here where you help fight the corruption in the swamp, and it culminates with this giant worm breaking free from the ground and attacking all nearby allies. At the end of the day, this is a pretty easy world boss to defeat, especially since it is located in a starting zone, but I still find it a lot of fun, and I think it is just a well-designed event as a whole, where relatively recently we saw this world boss overhaul to get updated mechanics and whatnot, which definitely improved the fight quite a bit. I think this world boss is definitely a great large-scale boss to introduce new Guild Wars 2 players to as they begin exploring the game, given how it has interesting mechanics, it is a pretty cool looking boss, and is fought in a pretty cool looking area. In the number 7 spot are Draethor's Worms. These are very interesting creatures that can be found in Draethor's domain in Kessex Hills, which, to look at the model first, they are very similar in style to the Necromancer's flesh worms, shout out to them, but these ones are more ghostly or illusion-y, where you can find these alongside some of Draethor's Fiends, which are again a different version of the Necromancer's Bone Fiend ability, and it's just always interesting to see these creatures when you come into this area because it feels really random. Which brings us to Draethor himself, where during the occasional events that appear here, you will encounter the champion Draethor the Drill, where this is a Wrathy Centaur who is indeed a Necromancer, but may have some Mesmer abilities as well, where that makes sense because the entire personality surrounding this character is how he wants more and more magical powers, where he will capture nearby humans and other individuals and brutally experiment on them to drain them of their life force to give himself more power. Where you may be wondering why he's called the Drill, because while he has named a couple of his Jagged Horror minions as Rupert and Puka, he has also named a massive drill Pathfinder, where he uses this giant drill in order to experiment on others, and this is just an insane storyline that I think a lot of people miss as they come through this area, where if you ever happen to fight some of Draethor's worms, maybe stick around for a bit. In the number 6 spot is Isomir, a classic. Anyone who has played through the very start of the Norn Personal story will know this worm very well, since it is the final boss of the Great Hunt story mission, where you come out into the world to participate in the yearly Great Hunt, and Newt Whitebear himself captured this giant ice worm from Lost Virm Cave further north in the Wayfarer foothills, where you go around the Borealis Forest hunting smaller animals until the main hunt begins, where you charge up Hangrimere Climb and find some smaller worm hatchlings at the top, where upon defeating some of them, Isomir will burst out of the ground and attack the player character, where this is a very simple boss fight, but just like all the other main bosses in each of the different tutorial missions, is just super cool and a fantastic introduction to the game, where once Norn players kill Isomir, they complete the Great Hunt and become known as the Slayer of Isomir, where you can return to this place in the open world and find Isomir's body with a hero challenge that you can commune with to gain a hero point. In the number 5 spot are Lava Worms. These are cool worms that you can find throughout the Ring of Fire island chain in the maps of Ember Bay and Draconis Mons, and I would hope any future Ring of Fire maps we get in the future. Where straight off the bat, I love the fact that there are worms we can find in the Ring of Fire that are lava themed and can mostly be found here, though they do show up for a moment in Siren's Landing. It feels great to come to a faraway dangerous locale and find incredibly unique and dangerous enemies to fight there, where they're just super cool looking, where they look like classic worms but are red and orange instead and look like lava, where their mouths kind of remind me of the Eye of Sauron from the Lord of the Rings. But they are relatively basic enemies you can fight, with the occasional super powerful one. In Ember Bay in the Fractured Caldera, you can find Vermingus, which is a massive lava worm fighting a massive golem known as Smushatron. Then over in Draconis Mons, you can find the Bloodstone Charged Lava Worm, which is similar looking but is Bloodstone infused. Where across the board, these are just super cool enemies, and I am very happy they are in the game. In the number 4 spot is Mothyu. This is a worm that can be found in Omnitus in the Bastion of the Natural, where he shares a model with a Mortar Breacher from Heart of Thorns, which if they are considered worms, then shout out to them, but Matthew is not a Mordrim and is just a massive jungle worm, where he belongs to Narcisse and is tended to in the Celestial Sky Garden, where he is basically involved in the event here where the different plants are corrupted by the Cryptus, and you have to cleanse them of the corruption, where Matthew serves as the final boss of this event, and he is the biggest plant in this area, where I just really like how he looks because of how unique his model is given the fact that it's a worm reusing the model of the Mortar Breacher, but obviously having a name like Matthew is going to instantly send you high up on this list. In the number 3 spot is a worm. Yes, worm. As in the worm spirit of the wild, where the spirits of the wild in a summarized and simplistic way are the Norn spirit guides, which are the spiritual embodiment of various animals across Tyria, where most players should be familiar with wolf, raven, snow leopard, and bear, but there are a wide variety of other ones like owl, frog, eagle, and of course, worm, where I have always found worm to be one of the more interesting spirits of the wild. Where wild is considered to be a lesser spirit nowadays, there are hints that he was significantly more important in the past. Where while worm is a lesser spirit, worm and worms in general are still regarded as great prey, which loops back around to Issermir and how Issermir was worthy of being the main hunt of a great hunt. Where we don't interact with the worm spirit of the wild too much in Guild Wars 2, outside of the little bit we learned here and there, where Bram had to prove himself to some of the lesser spirits of the wild, including Worm, during the Iceberg Saga, and the only specific major follower of Worm that we know about is Frode, previously known as Frode Wormsbearer, who is the warden of the Astral Ward, but gave up being a shaman following his experience with watching his friend almost transform into a bone skinner. In the number 2 spot is Frostmaw. This is a champion ice worm that can be found in Bouldermouth Vale and Lornar's Pass, where on paper this is a really random worm that a lot of people probably don't even know about, but is a worm that has always been super interesting for me, where he is a part of a random event in Lornar's Pass that is kind of off in a corner of the map, and there isn't much use to come here and do this event. There's no specific major rewards or anything, this is truly just a random event that you can do out in the open world, where he is a champion, so you may want to bring a friend or two with you when you try to beat this boss, which makes this event even less worth it to do at times. But a very interesting piece of story going on here is how this worm, Frostmaw, shares a name with the worm Frostmaw the Kinslayer from the original Guild Wars. Where in the Eye of the North expansion, you can dive into the dungeon known as Frostmaw's Burrow located in Jogga Moraine, and eventually work your way through the dungeon to defeat this giant worm. Where in canon, Frostmaw the Kinslayer is killed inside of this dungeon, which brings us back to Guild Wars 2, where we have this random worm that has the name of Frostmaw. There are no specific connections between these two worms, and the likely story going on here is that whatever developer implemented this random event thought the name of Frostmaw was cool and named this worm that, likely without remembering that there is a slightly important Frostmaw in the original Guild Wars. But we can do some headcanon and believe that this Frostmaw is an offspring of the original one. But one final piece of this worm that makes it special to me is how an old friend of mine who used to play Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 really liked Frostmaw from the original Guild Wars, so much so that he named his Guild Wars 2 character after the worm, which when I found this worm after having met him, I promptly freaked out. But now, the number 1 spot. For my favorite worm in all of Guild Wars 2, and should I say worms because it's triple trouble, something prepare for trouble and make it triple, or something along those lines. From the starting experience in Queensdale, where you fight little ore worms and farms, you advance through the game and will eventually reach this moment in Bloodtide Coast, one of the greatest world bosses in Guild Wars 2. In fact, my favorite world boss in all of Guild Wars 2. Triple Trouble is just fantastic, where this is one of the biggest world bosses in the game and is truly epic, where the map has to split up into 3 groups to fight 3 different worms, Crimson, Amber, and Cobalt. Where Crimson Worm is pretty basic, where you just collect colored pheromones by running around in a circle. But Cobalt Worm is a little more interesting, where you have to get some powder kegs from slightly tricky to reach locations and explode them on the worm. But then Amber Worm is super cool, where you have to get eaten by the worm, grab a harpoon gun from a partially digested adventurer inside of the stomach, get spit up out of the worm, and then use the harpoon gun against the worm. Where I love all these fights, especially Amber Worm, and I think there are fantastic challenges in the game, where all 3 worms have to die at around the same time as each other, where the 3 groups who decapitate the worms, which leads to each group fighting a giant worm head that is flailing around on the ground. Where upon all 3 worm heads dying, the teams beat the boss, and players can collect the rewards, where I just love this fight a lot. So much so that it is in the number 1 place on multiple top 10 lists. Where Amber Worm in particular is just so much fun, and I highly recommend that any player who hasn't done this world boss yet does so soon. In the number 10 spot are many certain Heart of Thorns adventures. Adventures are super fun activities that can challenge you in unique ways. You often have to learn a specific mechanic and master that mechanic in order to complete the adventure and rise to the top of the leaderboards. And there are a lot of these adventures, but a few of them are a bit sillier than others. The biggest one for me has to be A Fungus Among Us. This is an adventure where you transform into a mushroom person and you have to navigate through this jumping puzzle and make it all the way to the end. And don't get me wrong, this is incredibly fun and is an adventure that I like a lot. But the fact that you turn into a mushroom person is funny, especially given the fact that this is what you look like. But you also have a couple of similar adventures like the drone race, where you're piloting a little drone car and have to navigate through an obstacle course, or Beetle Feast, where you get transformed into a beetle and have to collect a bunch of mushrooms. In the number 9 spot are many of the hero challenges in the game. This is a general answer, but I'll highlight one specifically in a second. As you explore through Tarir, there are a wide variety of many different hero challenges that you can complete, and many of them often involve the commander consuming different substances that the commander probably shouldn't be consuming, such as this random old lady's toxobog stew, some powerfully weird meat that a centaur who tortures people has, this mysterious meat found amongst flesh reavers that has flies all around it, and there are just so many others. But the most iconic has to be this toxin-cured hog. This is a dead boar that you can find in Auric Basin. When you inspect it, you can see a toxic cloud is around it, which has done something remarkable. It has preserved the meat on this hog. It isn't spoiled, but you, the person who has killed Seitung and united Tyria, is curious if it is edible. So you pick up a piece, eat it, and well, you have to basically fight to survive. Which if you do, you complete the hero challenge and get some hero points. Honestly, while these are just funny and silly little challenges, it really makes you question your commander. In the number 8 spot is Keg Brawl. This is an activity that some people probably find funny, while many others find normal. And I just find the idea in general to be a little funny. This is a large sport that takes place in Holbrack, and you can participate in it once a week. This is a team-based minigame where you have a home base, and the enemy has a home base on either side of a massive ice field, and in the middle, a bunch of barrels spawn. Now you don't ever see this in-game, but presumably the barrels spin down this chute and are launched onto the ice for players to fight each other over. As you play, you're basically beating each other up in order to score as many kegs as possible for your team. The team who gets the most kegs wins. But if you pick up a keg and are running it for your team, you can use that keg as a weapon against any attackers. Essentially just beating somebody over the head with a keg of alcohol. And ultimately, this is a pretty small activity, but it just feels so random. In the number 7 spot is basically just various community traditions and interactions. The Guild Wars 2 community is very expansive and varied, and we see different fun things pop up every now and then, be it different memes, jokes, comics, posts, and whatnot that make their mark. But inside the game, we can see a variety of things. One big thing are the Boxes of Fun, which is an in-game item you can get and put down on the floor that others can interact with. With the Box of Fun, there are a bunch of fun things you can do. But my favorite has to be how you can petrify yourself, which you can combine with different animations to lock yourself in a funny pose. But you can also see things like commander parties where everyone in a map will tag up, which I don't personally enjoy, but I know a lot of other people do. And then there's just so many other things like prison parties in Radisum, dance parties everywhere, snowball fights during Winter's Day, official Choya business, and so on and so forth. And the number 6 spot is the April Fool's event, as well as the Super Adventure Festival. Every year, we have a week-long April Fool's event where you can participate in a variety of random shenanigans. There are a lot of different things, as we often see a new thing every year, and they even occasionally become permanent features in the game. But if you go to Lion's Arch during the April Fool's Festival, you can find a lot of silly things going on. My personal favorite though has to be the Super Adventure Box Festival. This was originally an April Fool's event, but has become its own thing that happens around the time of April Fool's. You have this Asuran engineer by the name of Moto who has this training program that you can participate in, and it is basically a massive jumping puzzle that takes place in a unique, much more pixelated world. And this activity is just so much fun and is full of many different hidden areas, secrets, Easter eggs, and references. Honestly, this is one of my favorite things in all of Guild Wars 2. In the number 5 spot is the Catapult. This is an iconic piece of char machinery that is incredibly important for player characters, as in you need to interact with it to get world completion. Diasa Plateau is the breadbasket of the Iron Legion and the char around the Black Citadel. There are a ton of farms, ranches, and other resource areas all around here. One of the most prominent parts of this map are the variety of different cattle ranches you can find around the map. One is Mad Mardine's Ranch, found around the Free Wain Pastures and Rancher's Wash. A small little ranch with a barn and a device known as the Coalpit. A couple of events take place around here that eventually leads to Mad Mardine launching cows out of the Coalpit, which honestly, this is kind of a horrifying thought where this crazy char is shoving cows into a launcher and then launching them across the map, but you can gamble on it, so that makes it okay. You can bet 50 silver for a chance to get 1 gold back if you guess correctly how far the cow is going to be launched. And if you want to take part in the fun yourself, you can jump right in and launch yourself up to the top of Moorwatch Tower and view the vista there. In the number 4 spot is the Help Mathlo task in Kessex Hills. In the Eucarian Caves, you can find this Hylic who is attempting to provide for their village. The Hylic around here are definitely struggling, and you can help them out in a variety of ways, like by killing the nearby Ettins, but should you talk to Mathlo, you can become transformed into a pig. And right off the bat, this is just incredibly silly. The pig costume that you have been transformed into is absolutely incredible looking, and it's really funny to just run around as a little pig. But you can use your pig powers to help collect truffles. You can sniff around the different areas, enter burrows, and bring truffles back to Mathlo so the Hylic can eat. But the thought of you just being transformed into a pig and running around this area doing little pig things is so fun. In the number 3 spot is the Put on a Cow Disguise and Demonstrate Techniques to the Cows event. Returning to Diasa Plateau, we can find more and more cattle ranches around the map outside of Mad Mardine's, and another one is the Charidus Estate. You have an interesting task here, but just north of the estate you can find this training course where a bunch of ranchers are attempting to train the cows here, but they are having some issues. So you and all of your glory can help them out by putting on a cow disguise and demonstrating various techniques to the cows around here. You go through this course with cows and do various group exercises to help teach the cows various attacks on target dummies and also against some enemies, and ultimately you can help teach the cows something and make the ranchers here happy. But similar to transforming into a pig to collect truffles, this is just a hilarious idea that you would transform into a cow to teach other cows how to do things. And lore-wise, this isn't pig magic, so you're probably just wearing a crude costume and running around on all fours, headbutting target dummies. In the number 2 spot is the Run Around for No Reason adventure. Okay, this one is really cool from a lore perspective, but it's also just so incredibly silly. Jahai Bluffs is an interesting zone where there are a bunch of mist distortions that are merging our reality with other areas of Tyria, the mists, the past, the future, and so on and so on. There are a bunch of super fun areas all around this map, but the question mark area is an incredibly intriguing place. This location is filled with hallucinogenic mushrooms from another world, meaning that another location completely outside of Tyria is merging into our world in this location, meaning these are like alien mushrooms. Which all of that is super interesting to think about, but let's loop back around to that throwaway word of these mushrooms being hallucinogenic. Should you come under the effects of hallucinations or start having a bad trip, you can find a lot of different, familiar faces around here. But then you also have the adventure of Run Around for No Reason, which is basically a simple obstacle course in this area that you can complete, and essentially what you're doing is literally just running around for no reason. You're not really achieving anything here, but you do get some rewards. But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite silly activity in all of Guild Wars 2, and it has to go to the Salmon Run Adventures. These are 2 adventures you can find in Lowland Shore, an easier one located right underneath Moon Camp, and another more difficult one located on the Harvest Shore. And these 2 adventures have you transform into a salmon and navigate through the rivers of the map. At the easier one, you simply swim through the river and have to swim down the waterfalls as well, going through all of the obstacles. But the harder one is a bit more complex, as you have to go up a bunch of waterfalls, and you're doing this by launching yourself via cannons, so your fishy self is just flying through the air. But there are also stretches of land you have to navigate across, but since you are a fish who typically swims, you have to flop all over the land to get across it and back into the water. And as you do all of this, you can also choose to glub all over the place. That sounds wrong, but you can use the glub key to make a glubbing noise. And a lot of people don't like these adventures, but many others do, and I just find these 2 adventures to be really fun and just super silly. Should you decide that you want to continue being a fish in other parts of Tyria, you can get the Endless Janthiri Floppy Fish Tonic that allows you to swim, flop, and glub to your heart's desire. And the number 10 spot is Carpine Gaze. This is a lowland cold inn in the Lowland Shore at Harvest Inn that I have a feeling not many people really know about this character, and I haven't seen this character too often, because he only appears during the day 20 minutes after the top of the hour. meaning that he is only in Harveston for a very short time period, so if you're just a player who runs through here randomly to go from one place to another and doesn't spend a lot of time in Harveston, or doesn't spend a lot of time specifically looking at some of the ambient dialogue around here, you will have missed this character. But this character's entire purpose, once he spawns 20 minutes after the hour, is to come from the first door to the east of the Bonfire Lodge and just walk over to Stoic Otter's house, judge it, and then walk back to his house where he despawns. Where at Stoic Otter's house he says things like typical, no seasonal decor, small firewood pile, you'd think with Poised Arrow living here. Meager garden offerings too. Porches unswept, filthy. Ugh, Tundra take me. Vince is unfinished too, embarrassing this is as his neighbor. Maybe he'll sort it out if I craft him a nice gate. A potted tree? In such a small vase? Dark sorcery this must be. What has this village come to? Where he's just that one neighbor that is always getting in other people's business and is always just being so incredibly judgmental. And he serves no other purpose in the game other than to do that. In the number 9 spot is Eagle Flight. This is a Shiver Peaks Coden located in the Bitterfrost Frontier at the Griffin Old Growth, and this is the Coden that is hanging out with Wumala, where this Coden doesn't serve too many purposes in the game, but does help defend the Griffins around here in the Griffin Old Growth. And Wumala is a Quaggan that I like a lot, and I've always associated Wumala with Eagle Flight because we have the Quaggans and the Coden in this map working together in order to protect each other within the Bitterfrost Frontier, and we have this Quaggan and this Coden that are coming out into the Old Growth in order to defend the Griffins as well from the Ice Brood and other threats. And I've always just found their mission incredibly noble, and I think Eagle Flight is just a really fun character just because they are taking time to come out away from the safety of their little sanctuary and to come into this little bit of a spooky forest and just defend creatures that need help being defended. We're also like the name Eagle Flight, as this is a character that is specifically focused on helping the Snow Griffins, which are kind of like eagles. In the number 8 spot is Poised Arrow. This is a Lowland Coden who is the son of Stoic Otter and the late Selkin Weir, who plays a pretty important part in the Janther Wild story, and I've always liked this character a decent amount since I've first played through the Janther Wild story, where he's really interesting because Stoic Otter is his father and is the current Claw of the Lowland Coden, but he is expected to succeed his father's position as the Claw of the Lowland Coden one day, whether it be when Stoic Otter retires or passes away, where you get to experience a lot of background history and developing stories related to Poised Arrow as you progress through the Janther Wild story, and I really appreciate this character just because we kind of see him grow throughout the duration of the Janther Wild story, where he is a relatively young Coden, and you see him mature a little bit more throughout the entirety of the story as he experiences everything that happens throughout the story. In the number 7 spot is Bright Shore. This is a Shiver Peaks Coden who can be found in the Aberrant Forest of the Biora Marches. And this is a character that I highlighted a long time ago on my channel in a video because he is just incredibly interesting and is connected to the Bone Skinner story, where this is a Coden who is starving and can be found at the ruined hut inside the Aberrant Forest and is being driven mad by whispering voices, the voices of Jormak or Jakar or some other minion, where the voices are telling him to kill and eat, where it's driving him closer and closer to madness as he begins to develop a hunger for flesh, where the Bone Skinners are just incredibly interesting and honestly incredibly horrifying creatures that we learn a little bit about in the Iceroot Saga and also in the Secrets of the Obscure expansion. And I always find this entire story beat in Guild Wars 2 incredibly interesting just because of how harrowing it is, where we see Bright Shore potentially beginning to transform into a Bone Skinner, but you can help him out a little bit and complete a collection that takes you around the Biora Marches. And I just remember completing this collection way back when this map originally came into the game. In the number 6 spot is Deft Lahar. This is another Lowland Coden who is a member of the Lowland Coden Council and is the Homestead Master, where you interact with this individual in the Janther Wild story, where you get your homestead, which is always a fun experience, and inside of your homestead of Hearth's Glow, and presumably, I'm assuming this is the case in the new homestead that we just got with the new expansion, where he's the primary point person in learning how to do things in your homestead and is an important NPC and merchant to interact with if you're doing different homestead stuff. But he can also be found during the different festivals around Tyria, and can be found wherever the festival is specifically being located. Like with the Shadow of the Mad King festival, he can be found in Lion's Arch. And I really like how he travels around the world of Tyria to sell different festival related decorations that you can learn and then craft for your own homestead. And I also want to point out how during the Super Adventure Box festival, you can find him in Radissoon, but you can also find him inside of the Super Adventure Box, and he is the grizzly bear model that you can find within the Super Adventure Box, which I think is just an incredible touch. In the number 5 spot are Flowering Meadow and Winter Sky. These are two Coden who are deeply connected to one another, where there is an entire side story called the Star-Crossed Lovers that you can do in the Janther Wilds expansion, where Flowering Meadow is a lowland Coden that you can find in the Harvest Inn, and you basically start this entire story with her. Where then Winter Sky is a Shiver Peaks Coden who can be found in the Frostgorge Sound. And throughout this collection, you work to reunite these two, and eventually Winter Sky will move to Harvest Inn and be one of the, if not the only, Shiver Peaks Coden found within Harvest Inn. And I really like this side story, and I really enjoy all the Janther Wild side stories, and if you haven't done them, you definitely should. And this one in particular, you definitely should, because it is pretty quick and easy to complete and gives you 10 achievement points and a mastery point. And the entire story that's going on here is really fun as well. In the number 4 spot are the Ash Makers. This is a very generic idea for the Coden, but these are lowland Coden that you can find throughout the lowland shore, where in the lore of the game there are a lot of Ash Makers, and in lowland shore specifically you can find 2 of them, and then you can also consider Stoic Otter serving as an Ash Maker during the Mount Balrior convergence. But in Autumn's Vale and in Harvest Inn you can find 2 different Ash Makers who are sitting around a fire, and you can sit at the fire with a bunch of other Coden and just listen to the Ashmaker tell a different story, where this is just ambient dialogue that you can stumble upon around the map. And I really love stumbling upon it and listening to the Ashmakers tell their story, where the entire theme and vibes and idea of the Ashmakers is incredible, just because they are Coden who are telling stories and just sharing the history of the Coden and tales related to the Coden, which I always think is an important part of culture. And playing through Guild Wars 2, it is fun to just learn a little bit of the lore and story of the world that you are going through. And the number 3 spot is Sparking Stone. This is a Shiver Peaks Coden who is available during festivals, very similar to Deathlahar, but this is the original character, where this might be one of the most interacted with Coden in the entire game, as he shows up at every single one of the festivals and sells different festival related weapon skins that are different depending on what festival he is currently at, where he travels to the different areas where the festivals are located, such as in Lion's Arch during the Shadow of the Mad King festival. And with the introduction of Deathlahar into the game, Deathlahar hangs out near Sparking Stone. And very similar to Deathlahar in the Super Adventure Box, we see him out in Radissoon, but we can also find him inside of the Super Adventure Box, where he is digitalized as a polar bear, similar to how Deathlahar is a grizzly bear inside of the Super Adventure Box, which I think is an incredible touch. But Sparking Stone did it first, and Deathlahar followed. In the number 2 spot is Stoic Otter. This is the Coden Claw that we have been talking about a couple of times throughout this video, who is just an incredible Coden, who is the leader of the Lowland Coden and a member of the Lowland Coden Council, is the father of Poised Arrow, and has a house that maybe should have a little bit of work done on, where he's just an incredible personality that you can interact throughout the Janther Wild story, where he is careful but friendly, where he is stern but loving, and is somebody who has experienced so many bad things in his life but still works in order to build towards a better future. Whereas he is the leader of the Lowland Coden, he is an important person related to the Terran Alliance, and we have interacted with him a lot throughout the Janther Wild story, and presumably in the future we will continue to see Stoic Otter playing a part here and there throughout different Guild Wars 2 expansions, as we presumably continue interacting with the Terran Alliance. And I really do hope we continue interacting with Stoic Otter, just because he is an incredible personality and a really big part of the Janther Wilds expansion that was a highlight of the expansion for me. But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite Coden in all of Guild Wars 2, and it just has to go to Barbed Veil. I love this Coden so much. Where this is another member of the Lowland Coden Council who are pretty important Coden that we have interacted with throughout the Jathyr Wilds expansion, and Barbed Veil is the Spear Master and is just an incredibly powerful and strong character. Where we see her playing a part in the Jathyr Wild story in Act 1 and also in the Godspawn release with Mount Balrior. In the Jathyr Century, she also plays the most important part in the entire meta event where you stop Decima and Greer from draining the Bloodstone, and you listen to her voice in relation to that massive meta event, which anyone who has played through the Jathyr Wild story has probably played through this meta event and has listened to Barbed Veil. And anyone who has played through the Jathyr Wild story has also probably interacted with this character in the story itself, especially in Act 1 with Unknown Territory and Missing in Action. But my favorite part about Barbed Veil has to be in the Lowland Shore, where we have the entire Harvest Den task that I love a lot, and we have the Sleuth Braw Fields with the massive arena that happens here, where there are 6 different events where you complete a couple of different challenges and fight a few different bosses, but the final boss is Barbed Veil, where you can take battle to the Spearmaster herself as a group and try to strike her down, but she really does prove her mettle, where she is so incredibly strong and powerful and insane, where this entire event is just absolutely bonkers insane, where the Lowland Coden are shown as a loving and peaceful group of Coden that are just trying to live their lives in the Lowland Shore and defend themselves against any threats and just eat honey and whatnot. But we cannot forget that many of the Lowland Coden are incredibly strong and can hold their own in combat, where Barbed Veil proves this most of all out of all of the Coden, where every 25% she will randomly grab a member of the group that is fighting her and will place them in a chokehold, where you have to then break Barbed Veil's break bar in order to free whichever person was put in a chokehold. But if you don't break her break bar, she will grab the person that she has in a chokehold, swing them up into the sky, and then slam them down into the ground, just crushing their skull and instantly killing them while screaming, "Welcome to Harvest Den." And that's just so cool. I love that so much. Where my first time experiencing this, I was actually freaking out because of how insane this entire event is, and I still love coming through here every now and then and just watching her absolutely annihilate a random person, sometimes me, while screaming "Welcome to Harvest Den." And this has just cemented herself as my favorite Coden in all of Guild Wars 2. One final thing that I want to talk about in this video are cats and dogs. There are many different cats throughout the world of Tyria that I think are important to shout out. We have some classic cats that you can find throughout the world, like lynx, jungle stalkers, cheetahs, snow leopards, jaguars, and tigers. Then you also have the really cool white tiger and Cantha that is rarer. But maybe the most popular of all are the different little house cats around the game, including the cats from the Hungry Cat Scavenger Hunt that will allow you to befriend many cats around Tyria, where they will then show up in your homestead. Slightly similar to cats are dogs. We of course have a variety of wolves in the game, as well as more domesticated types of dogs like the Crichton Drakehounds of Kryta and the Basenji of Kurna. There are also many different types of dogs that you can find, especially during the April Fool's Festival, where with that there are many special cats, dogs, and other pets around the world that feature real life pets added as a part of the Extra Life charities. And that's the entire video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully throughout this entire thing you learned something new at some point, or at the very least there was some interesting stuff to think about. Guild Wars 2 is definitely a massive game with so many incredible things going on. I hope you all are taking great care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.